unbeatable, unstoppable. Those are the vibes they gave me in this game, the way they cleared things out. We know what Veno and Flixie can do, but Vico in this game to close things out was just magnificent. The best fragger in EU is the title he's held for quite a while now. And there's been some different people sort of trying to take him on, right? Different people coming into the fray saying, hey, look, I might be the best fragger. It might not be you, Vico. He's trying to shut up all those people today. I mean, the closing moments, just to have that confidence, hitting the shots needed. I mean, this team is something else. Again, I said yesterday, if they can pull off what they're trying to pull off this weekend, it's going to be one of the greatest performances we've seen in an EU major final. The way this is going is a different turn I weren't expecting, but it's still going on that trajectory if they can continue this form.
And this isn't just a victory royale for Vico, Veno and Flixie. The way that they won this has major implications on the leaderboard and on our number one trio, Malabuka, Ping and Wox. We'll be talking more about that after this break. It is Championship Sunday of FNCS Europe Major 2, and we've started with an absolute barnstormer. And in fact, we should really take a look at the leaderboard first of all before we discuss what happened in Game 7, because there were huge implications. Vico, Veno and Flixie wiped our leaderboard toppers, Wox, Malabuka and Ping at Lone Wolf Lair to start off the game, and then they went and took the victory royale, which means there's just 17 points separating these teams now. There's two questions. The first one being for you, Mini Miner. What does this mean for Mali's team? Do you think that they're going to have a bit of a mental block? They're going to have the shadow of Veno on their backs going forward?
Yeah, I mean, they have to, right? That has to give them a bit of a wobble. They've now just sat in lobby for 25 minutes, having to think through what they need to do next. That's definitely thrown a spanner in the works to them. The big question is now what's going to happen next game, I think, as well. You know, are Vico, Ven, and Flixi actually going to go ahead and do that? Are they going to play those mind games? I don't know. I don't know what I would do in this situation, but they seem to have it on lock.
This is the beauty of Fortnite, right? Because after yesterday, everyone was going 100-point gap after day one. Is crazy, right? And just like that, it's all changed, right? Yeah. 17 points, nothing now going on for the next 5 games. So close. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, do you just keep going there because it works so well in that game? I feel like we just can't predict what Veno, Vico, Flixi will do because they've just been so unpredictable all weekend long, including that game. Whatever they do, I know they've cooked up something. That's the reality of it. We can trust that whatever they choose to do will be effective.
Well, we've got 5 more courses to taste as the day continues, but let's talk about Vanyak, Pixie, and Marius. Vanya in particular was making hero plays to try and clutch them inside the top 10. I think he managed 12 in that last game, but it's still a blistering start for these guys, Levin.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at these guys, and again, they were a team that I feel like just goes under the radar. It's just a very, very good team here in EU. I remember back in the day when Vanya used to play and compete in EU in duos, you know, he was always a top talented player. And we were always like, if he could get some tier 1 teammates with him, he's going to shine. And obviously he played with Swizzy, finally picked up an FNCS win. And in this team, he's got Marius and Pixie with him. Marius, very unfortunate there to get taken down by Mustache. But, you know, when you have Marius and Pixie alongside, you know, a player like Vanya, you know, they're always destined for great things. How he survived here, Mini, was mental. I thought he was 100% going down, and he just managed to just stay alive, clutch out some extra placement points.
Yeah, we spoke about it a lot last major as well with Queasy, Swizzy, and Mustache about how these important solo clutches can have a big impact because these guys now need to keep up with the top end of the leaderboard if they want any chance of winning this FNCS. So those sort of performances are so important, especially now if Vico, Ven, and Flixi are going to be landing in different places. Maybe they're going to continue landing on Malabuka. That could swing either way, so they need to keep in that top 3.
Tayson, Chris, and Chicho, we didn't get to see much of a big performance from them yesterday. However, their fortunes did start to improve over the first 6 games. And now I feel like we've seen the best from them yet after they switched their drop spot to Kappa Kappa Mini Minor. Yeah,
well, they switched their drop spot midway through yesterday. They found a lot of success now there at Kappa Kappa. I think they were uncontested in that game as well, Evan. So a lot, it seems to be going their way right now. And this is the sort of performance that we expect to see from a team like Tayson, Chicho, and Haris. We know how good Chicho and Haris are. We know how good Tayson can be in these high-pressure situations. We just didn't get to see it for half of yesterday. And now they're sneakily coming up into that top 8. Could they be a Globals qualification? We'll have to see.
If they keep this up, absolutely. Their form since switching to Kappa has been so strong. It sometimes feels wrong, like talking about competitive Fortnite EU, like the top level of it, not mentioning Tayson. So I'm glad to see their team picking up a bit of form, and maybe they will push their way in and call for Globals.
This is what we want to see, guys. A hotly contested day 2. So let's head to game 8 now with Taco and Takata.
Thank you, Frankie. Look, to set the stage, there was a 142-point difference from Veno's trio and Malabuka's trio going into game 1 today. Now there's just a 17-point difference after 1 match. The issue is, Taco, if they keep contesting each other, it might go back and forth.
It could go back and forth, but if we play back the flashbacks from the DIP finals in week 5, that's something that I think Veno is more than willing to stake and wait and like try to, you know, take his chances with in comparison to Malabuka's team. But they had that entire match to sit out, right? So surely they're thinking about if they get contested again off spawn, how are we going to actually tackle that fight?
Yeah, I mean, this might be a minor factor too, but if you get elimed off spawn, you got like 23 minutes, maybe you're in creative doing 1v1 something. Vico, Veno, Flixi just got like a 15 elim win. I mean, that's gonna boost up your confidence, boost up your energy, and I didn't see Vico missing any shots, so I mean, they're gonna be going in on fire for this off spawn engagement. Once again, if that's what they decide to do, right? We saw them switch things up, but to be honest, I think it's what's gonna happen. We don't have to wait long. The 8th game is ready to go.
It's just got to be one of those stomach drop sensations, though, if you are Malabuka, Ping, and Walks, because everybody is such a fierce competitor, right? But when you are just watching the team that wiped you, knowing that this is probably the only team in this lobby that can truly threaten your current claim for that first place position on the leaderboard, and then you see them win, not just clear you out of your spot, but win the game. It is such a huge statement from Veno's team, and we're gonna have a repeat circumstance here at Takata. Veno, Flixie, Vico, they are here again at Lone Wolf. They are not letting up, and Malabuka, Walks, and Ping, they're gonna have to formulate some kind of a response because they can't afford to watch these guys play out a fresh match without them.
Looking at drops, Flixie lands first. Vico, Veno, they've claimed the high ground position here at Lone Wolf. They have that positional advantage. Will they be able to take this fight fast enough? Will they get enough shields? There's so many factors to these early game engagements. But ultimately, if you put in the work, if you put in the prep, if you hit your shots, it looks like both trios right now are going to be quite even on shield. It's all up to who can make the better play.
Oh no. Oh no, that was almost disastrous for Vika, but Malabuka just gonna get the shots off in time. So Vika's going to survive. Malabuka now dropping. Wanted to challenge some of these lower floors. Walks, but it's Ping knocked yet again. Malabuka's team taking the first casualty here. And Walks, Malabuka, they've got to go on a recovery tour now. Vico, total control of the high ground. Even if Malabuka and Walks try to escape the mansion, they're gonna have to deal with Vico. But Flixie, him having been eliminated now means that this is a clean 2 versus 2. Walks trying to deal with Vico and Veno at the same time. Probably way too much pressure. So he'll try to create a little bit of space. Vico and Veno still hunting though. But Walks, he just wants to play the quiet game.
I wonder if any of the trios kind of, you know, north of Lone Wolf or in the surrounding areas are going to think, is this a good time to, you know, like maybe third party these trios? Is it a option? How long are these fights going to take? It's all about looking at the elimination feed, seeing how it plays out. But if you looked right now, you know that both teams have lost a player. And right now it looks like Vico, Veno actually don't have the superior position. They're going to farm match. They're doing what they can, but might even potentially try and bring back Flixie. Even if they do so, will they get beamed out the sky? It's kind of forcing them to drop down and be on even ground here, as they were trying to do whatever possible to stop this, but I think they're gonna get it.
Veno's holding. They don't have the materials to jump in and challenge it, even with Flixie getting knocked. He's fully covered. That's why Vico was tarping out in the first place. He tunneled out a safety net for when Flixie landed. Obviously, they want to go for the double revive, but Malabuka Walks. They can't afford to waste any more time. They're trying to close in. It's still a 2 versus 2 scenario. Veno nearly getting the better end of Malabuka there, but Vico down to his final build. Vico's just going for the immediate battle, and he wins it out. Walks cannot stop him. Malabuka also about to join his teammate. Another clear wipe. Veno and Flixie are just waiting. Flixie watching his teammates essentially clutch this one up. Malabuka, though, finally shutting down Vico. I would not believe it had we not just seen it, Takata, but Vico doesn't actually win. I thought this was all said and done. Veno now has to ensure that he takes out Malabuka. They need to play for the reboots. And Malabuka, he doesn't have an opportunity just yet to use these shield potions. But he's trying to dodge around, even taking the launch pad. He's got a little bit of help indirectly, and Veno could fall here, but he's still chasing Malabuka. These guys refusing to budge, but they spent entirely too long. It is catastrophe now for both of our leading teams.
No. Not even a single trio comes out winning in this situation. The fight took too long. The players in the surrounding area, like I was mentioning, they saw on the Elim feed that these teams were going back and forth. It wasn't a quick wipe. It's the perfect third-party opportunity. And it wasn't just one trio. It was 2 different trios that realized this. What a tragic fall for both Veno and Malabuka's trio. Scroll, eye drop in sky now. Gonna try and fight the other third-partying trio, Grippe. trying to do what he can to stay up, but Skrull going right into the box. He's got that gold rush effect, phasing his way in, but no knocks connecting yet. As the longer these trios take, the more risky the situation is gonna get.
This might have just bailed out Malabuka entirely, though. Didn't actually see him getting cleaned up in the same fashion as Veno there towards the end, so he might have even scurried off elsewhere, might be able to play for a reboot later on. Definitely worst case scenario for Veno, but high risk, high reward is definitely seeming to be the name of the game as far as those two teams are concerned. iDrop, Skrull, and Sky, though, they need to just establish Surge the same way that they've been doing. They loved fighting all throughout yesterday. That was how they primarily established their Surge, and seems to maintain their intention here.
There's a few things to think about. One, Malabuka's still up, so there's potential for a reboot later on. The other is that first and second place, so Malabuka and Veno, are, you know, only a difference of 17 points, but second and third is a difference of 64 points. So if Malabuka goes down here, that's a huge opportunity from second or third, sorry, to seventh, eighth, even just the top 10 in general, to close that gap between first and second. And these are two trios that can make it happen.
Close call there for Glubshy. Nearly found himself eating a tag that was going to be a big problem. Fortunately, it didn't go through. I like this, though, from Sky. Just maintaining the high ground position. Also making sure to look out, see whether or not teams are trying to join the mix-up that's taking place here at Lone Wolf. But Sky, Skrull, iDrop, they might have gotten the damage that they were after. Whether or not they continue to re-engage is a separate conversation, but Malabuka is still lingering the bottom end of Lone Wolf Lair, and it's probably going to be very difficult for him to actually work his way out of this POI, since he knows that there is a team controlling the high ground. You just get so much view from where Sky and Skrull were last seen that Malabuka doesn't have any other options but to just hide. Hope that these teams are able to clear out, and then they can try to make a play.
Yeah, it's a matter of time here. You know, do they wait for the Lone Wolf to go in zone, go there, even go into zone to find something? While that plays out, though, we'll look over at Prodoxy, Chino, and Pablo. Double chugs, hopeful height battle. Dexy, Artist, and Huddy. This is the trio that I believe originally was going to contest Tayson today. But it looks like they're up against Fred, and it's not quite going their way as Artist gets knocked. Now with 3v2.
Some of these teams just getting so disoriented in mix-ups. But Pablo finds a clean shot onto Dexy. Just another elimination. So many elims, even for Doxy's team, already at 6. They are clearly trying to avoid having to deal with any sort of surge woes later on. Surely this is enough damage to carry them through their mid-game rotates.
Surely, right?
Surely.
Seeing what Malabuka decided to do, it seems like, yeah, Lone Wolf still has 2 trios there, so he's like, you know what? I'm out of here. I'll find another reboot.
Oh, no.
But, I mean, there are some trios close by. I'm wondering if he even has all the cards, if he's going to go for the gold route. A lot of options, but the issue is, you know, in this meta, the odds of having trios inside of the Storm is significantly higher. I mean, even comparing it to last season, there was a 68% increase with the amount of time spent in the Storm. So you really do have to be careful when you're rotating through here. You're never safe, but we'll see if Malabuka can make something happen.
Definitely not going to be an easy endeavor. A couple other teams, though. Kudo just stuck. Nowhere left to run. Misha's team finding that elimination leads me to believe that something has gone horribly wrong for Pink and Nebs, considering that they weren't with him. Sure enough, leaderboard top right going to reveal it. Pink, Nebs, Kiro are currently 5th place team, having been freshly eliminated. now means that other teams can try to leapfrog their way into that position instead. Queasy, Swizzy, and Mustache, though, they're just focused on their own methods of success.
Good news is they still have Seaport on con. You know, they don't have a Vico Venoflixi camp in their vault this time around, so a little less pressure in that sense. Can play more what they have been used to playing throughout the season. And hey, looks like Malabuka got, you know, step 1 of 5 complete, right? He brought his teammates back into the match, but now not only do they have to recuperate their shield, their mats, their loot, they're probably gonna have to get a bit of damage. Malabuka already had those eliminations, but even so, having to rotate from Outlaw, you know, the job's not finished.
They're definitely going to have to spend some time looking to build back up from their starting point. And yeah, it's always going to be difficult, but when you play for the reboot, you're also letting everybody else in the area know, including teams that may be struggling for Surge along the way. And Malabuka just trying to get out as quickly as possible. Walks looking for whatever whites he can find. They are just so split currently.
What I don't like here is if the opposing trio chooses to take that geyser and find, you know, one of the players caught off guard. If they see Walks in the shoreline, all 3 of them land on him. You know, there's quite a risk there, but saw a little bit of what happened to Demon's Dojo. Vanya Maris and Pixie, this could be a big game for them. They're the closest to second place, sitting in 3rd. So Vico's already gone. If Malabuka doesn't make out a zone here, this is the trio that has a big opportunity to make it in. Actually, with the current points, including, you know, this match, 4th place alongside Pablo, Ferdoxy, and Shino there. So they're both really close.
They're not looking to have a repeat of what went down, though, in Major 1. They want to be the ones in control of the leaderboard, Takata. It's definitely about the Global's position, but winning and becoming the Blade of Champions holder yourself is an entirely separate feeling, and that's one that this team is certainly chasing after with all their might.
Looks like Akira, X, and Kararma are going to be at the opposing end here. Just kind of taking shots back and forth. I don't think we'll see a fight come out from this. Okay, I only see Malabuka, which is slightly concerning, but his teammates are up. It's just Twice Trio's making it quite difficult for them to get back in. But, you know, on the other hand, it's given them a bit of damage, which they do need. So to be fair, it's not the worst thing that could happen. This is just not looking good, though. To be honest, like...
You're at Canyon's Crossing, and the zone is pulling towards the northern side, where the elevation is at. Even if they make it in, they still have to deal with all the struggles that are involved with scaling up elevation, dealing with their material counts. Veno's strategy has just set them so far back that even the initial survival, if you want to consider that a win, isn't actually proving to be all that much in their favor, because they are just about to hit the range of placement points, and there's not that many, and they're going to need way more. You want to look at consistent top 5 placements.
Yeah, I mean, I'll basically call that a draw, right? We had 1-0 for Vico Venoflixi and now a 1 for the draw. They both kind of didn't win in this situation. Now, hey, if Malabuka's able to come back, get a decently, you know, solid game, even just make it to end game, that actually won't be too bad at all. At least they can continue to kind of increase that gap, but we'll see. For the trios inside a zone, Kami said Haru didn't have that challenge in the early game. They're positioned up quite well to kind of pick off these teams rotating on in. We'll see where this next zone does end up pulling, but I mean, so far pretty chill.
They can take a few extra ticks of storm if needed. We're also hanging around that edge line of Seaport, so teams that are having to deal with maybe rotating over the water with Seti and Kami's position, they've got that leverage of holding down the bridge. Thomas on the island with that mythic drum gun. does
That's
he
harder than
end
it
up
looks.
eating a
Like,
tag.
those tags, when they're
Not if you're
running around
Thomas.
building that far away in a major finals lobby with the amount of players that are up, you know, those aren't easy shots, but I mean, it's Thomas HD. Malabuka walks, though. This is what they need. They need to find a surprise. They need to find a refresh. Malabuka hits the initial shot. Does get a knock. He doesn't even go down. This could be it, Taco.
This could be huge for Malabuka, but first, they've got to close it out. For next team, though, completely sabotage from where we're currently looking. And Dinas will be fully wiped. Just camping the launch pad. A bit diabolical by Malabuka, but desperate times call for desperate measures, and you have to respect the strategy here. They had to do something to come up with a little bit of a win after what took place in the early.
You said diabolical. That's the perfect play. I mean, if you're thinking of odds of where trios are going to end up, a launch pad in a location like this for common rotations is the perfect spot. And not only
They're
did not a
sticking to
single
that high
player get
ground.
knocked, they were able to get multiple finishes. I mean, this is exactly what we wanted to see from Malabuka's trio. They are somehow managing to slowly but surely turn this game around. I drop Sky and Scroll, on the other hand, still below.
Just trying to make sure that Fnaim, Moneymaker, Faded don't actually try to focus in on where they're currently seated. A little bit lower down. They're gonna work their way into this next edge of zone, though. Costing them a lot of mats, though. They're probably hoping for better tags, but Hydra from out of nowhere, completely out of left field even, just gets knocked. Zara, Zangi, and Peterbor have closed into their current position. Double revive will be enough to get iDrop back into the action, but they're still 5 below. Time is ticking, and the clock is working against them. Scroll trying to make up for the lost minutes. They want a little bit more damage, but they've got to spend time.
This is a tight
healing.
situation.
And Sky gonna pay the ultimate price here. He wanted to see if he could get that little bit of extra surge for his teammates, but instead, a 1 versus 3, just too aggressive. And he'll be punished for it. Zara and Zangi, likely another team that was also incredibly low on their surge, but now, Scroll, iDrop, they don't get a chance to think about it. They're gonna try to get some shots off, but with the armored van, it's gonna be very difficult, and Scroll still has to deal with all the teams ahead of him at Kappa Kappa.
And they have to, yeah, make that rotation, right? Hey, at least we didn't get a full north zone. I mean, we're east here, but it's about mid-map, so not too bad, not too bad. Malabuka walks ping in the zone finally. 5 elims on the board now, and despite getting those eliminations, still only 55 above. But this is honestly more than they could even ask for with the amount of materials and loot that they have. Now it's just about keeping it up. They might not get the best zone position. They might not have a bunch of extra loot, but at least they are in the game.
Might have to use that Memmis grenade sooner rather than later, though. But Walks trying to hold on to it, trying to see if he can punish Peterbor's team. We saw them spend a couple of moments tangling with eye drops because they needed that surge damage. But Walks now gonna nestle Malabuka's team at just 124 above. They still need to find some form of an elimination refresh. They want the elims, and they are punishing these teams that were just slower to the rotate than themselves. Great elimination, though. That's definitely going to build up a little bit of a buffer zone here. Juicy, Andy, and Fincheck, though, look like they want to try and get involved. And consider that they're further ahead than Malabuka's team, they might be able to actually punish them once Malabuka's team leaves this boxed up position.
Yeah, they have a lot of builds in front of them, so, you know, normally if you want to try and go on congested side, sometimes it's not possible. They're gonna have to follow through the builds that are already placed and do what they can to make it in, despite there being a lot of trios there already. But for Merstash, Queasy, and Swizzy, they are quite low, kind of under the bridge almost, but at least they're safe here.
Depending on how this next zone pulls, it might actually work to their advantage, because then they could just look to layer swap and play on top of the bridge compared to where other teams might get stuck on the other side of the waterway. Still, so many teams starting to really pile up here. Oppo, Panzer, and Thomas making the most of this hill face, though. But they want to get a move on. A little bit short on that bat rotate. But it gets the job done. Thomas and Panzer, awful. They've got a little bit of damage above the threshold, but they definitely need some more.
Malabuk has been knocked though. Walks has been fully eliminated. Both players down. As Ping is left as a solo now with all the pressure on him. 91 above. I mean, they were able to get a bit of eliminations, a slight amount of placement. But I mean, they've still got good materials. Well, Ping still got good materials. The only issue is with multiple trios focusing you, you got to either get close to another trio and, you know, make them get
Damn, they're
close to
pushing
you
him
as
so
well.
hard.
Just hope he gets people
They
to
know
stop
he's a
shooting at
solo.
you, but
He's so
it's
obviously a
difficult.
solo. They are going to keep shooting at this man. They do not want to let an individual survive these circumstances. Does spot a little bit of loot though. That might be slight saving grace. Swizzy, Queasy, and Mustache though have
Nah, I'm not playing. I'm just
seem like posted
spectating.
up above the bridge now. They took their opportunity to get that overhead space. And this is very familiar territory for them, considering that they land at Seaport City, Shining Span right next door, committing a lot of materials here, making sure that they can just have a huge metal lining to peek out from.
this is going to be an impressive rotate if he pulls this one off. I mean, he's got to swim. There's a lot of trios in front of him. If he can catch a player off guard, could be a massive refresh, but he's not.
He just
able
risked
to
it all
connect
right there.
crucial
No
shots.
way.
And Thomas HD with the drum gun is going to be able to take him out.
But Thomas was so split from where Panzer and Uppel are at that Uppel doesn't have the same luck as Thomas. He has been knocked very soon to be eliminated if a team can't get the job done. But Thomas, he's not going to be able to jump forward any further. This water zone is just so vicious. So many teams having to commit so much material. They just don't have the time to think about where they're headed next. They're just trying to get into the safety of the zone itself. Panzer might be able to build up a couple of placements here.
For the players on the edge here, it's the perfect opportunity to just kind of rain down from above on all the solos, trios that are trying to make their way in. And it's going to be Cami, Seti, and Hari who successfully have taken that high ground. This is prime positioning for them. It wouldn't even matter to them if it pulled back. It would be honestly perfect with the builds already placed and how difficult they would make it for the trios down below. There's only 9 trios left in this match. Devastating zone.
Queasy's team, though, is still kind of hovering that secondary height position for Doxy, Pablo, Chino. They'll tank a little bit of storm damage if it means getting into more optimal position. Pixie and Vanya, though, make that just Pixie because Vanya has been knocked. Pixie now watching in horror. Can't do anything for his teammates. He might not even be able to save himself unless he's quick. 3 reaction times, but Jewel, Sangil, Tidy, they've got the advantage. And Pixie, he'll be forced to just play inside the storm, hope that this Chug Jug can get him a couple of additional placement spots.
Oh.
But it is a steep rotation, and as a solo, somebody is bound to notice him. He could look for a big pump shot, but it would take a lot of guts for him to pull it off, and Height has already noticed. But he sees the knock body. He wants to go for the 1v1, but he won't get that opportunity. Comeback falling directly next to him. Everybody getting cleared up.
Said we messed up. The zone didn't go north this game, so we got to make every single moving zone just keep going more north. For Doxy, Chino, Pablo, they're able to knock down one. Big refresh to allow them to continue on forwards. Cami, Seti, Hari starting to drop down a little bit here. They could be running low on materials and potentially looking for a refresh, but every trio, every player down below on minimal materials, so little to work with. It's going to be all-out chaos.
Mustache completely ran out of mats. Hari, Cami, Seti, they might have height control, but the zone, it's pulling back up the hill face slightly, and Queasy's team, they committed to the low. Queasy's team now stuck, and they're gonna be collected victims of where this RNG is working against them. But for Doxy, Chino, Pablo, they might have something to say. They might be able to steal this one away from Seti, Cami, and Hari. And Fordoxy just narrowly peeking out. Pablo doesn't have any builds left, though. They're going to have to fight their way through this one. Darm, Pix, completely cut off from each other, and that's going to be another elimination added on for Pablo, Chino, and Fordoxy. They are making it work. Despite not having any mats to build with Takada, they are still clearing out this low front side. And Pablo, Fordoxy, Chino, they know we've just got to stay as close to each other as possible. There aren't that many players remaining. They can deal with Pix and Demas. It could be the difference maker here. Pix will be collected, but Chino, having been eliminated, now makes it all the easier for Seti, Kami. They could maybe make something big happen here, but Pablo, he is scrambling. Just so much pressure coming in from above. Kami, Hari, Seti, they know that there is only 2 players standing in the way of them in this next Victory Royale, and they are hunting Fordoxy and Pablo down. The advantages are just so steeply in their favor. They've got the high ground. Fordoxy and Pablo surely completely out of materials, just clinging on to whatever HP they have left. But Seti, he'll be the first to fall. He's going to play Disruptor. Kami, Hari, now going for the backup, but Fordoxy, he might have done enough, but no! Kami falls, and Hari's not going to be able to do it! Pablo is going to be the one to seal the deal here! Fordoxy's team had zero business winning this one out, and yet Pablo making sure the job gets done.
How do they let that happen? How do they let that happen, Taco? The 2v3, not only that, you said they got to be running low on materials. Kami said, Hari, we're also running low, forced to drop down, and somehow, Fordoxy, Pablo, they got the job done. They take home the win. What a way to close out this match. Going into the game in 4th place, 1st and 2nd, getting knocked out. This is exactly what they needed to push themselves into that possibility of taking home this tournament.
It's just Fordoxy at the end there. He just had the singular tag he needed, the damage that he had to apply in that closing moment to make it so that Pablo could fully find that last elimination. But it's always tough when you get tangled up in those kinds of positions for both teams. Kudos, though, to Fordoxy's for holding on.
Oh, they did not miss a shot. Fred dropped down low, took out Seti. Pablo gets the back-to-back from Kami onto Hari. What a way to finish it off. I mean, I'm lost for words, but I know 3 people that have got plenty, so let's head on over to the desk.
No, you don't understand. I don't have plenty after watching that. I don't know how you boys are faring, but oh my gosh, my jaw was on the floor as it has been multiple times this weekend. I didn't think it could get any lower, but I think I've got a bruise, Levin 2K, because that end game was wild.
I still don't know how that happened. I'll be so... There's no reason why Kami, Seti, and Hari should be losing that 3v2. I mean, come on, look, Fordoxy, Pablo, this game was so crucial for them, right? Because the 2 top dogs at the top of the leaderboard went down. The 2 top dogs left room open for that 3rd place team in Chino, Pablo, and Fordoxy to come through. And what a better game to do it, right? They had to win this game to put themselves into contention. And I think this would actually put them into 1st place on that leaderboard. But how do they win that 3v2, Mini? It's ridiculous.
Absolutely insane. I think it was Seti that dropped down a little bit. Prince Shorley there just didn't really work out for those guys.
He got
chopped down. Was it chopped? Yeah, that's what happened. But for these guys, I mean, Pablo Wingu there at the end has to be said. He was hitting some huge shots onto the trio on height. And just the way that these guys play these end games, we spoke about it. Is this now the time where we should start considering this team as a potential FNCS champion here in Chapter 16 2? Absolutely unreal here. But they deserve it if they are going to do it, because they've been so consistent all weekend.
I mean, I just would have never thought we'd be going into game 9 of the FNCS finals here in EU with Pablo, Chino, and Fordoxy as the team in 1st place. There's still plenty of Fortnite to be played, but this team might just win Denmark's 1st FNCS. I don't want to speak too prematurely, but that's on the cards now. They're in contention after this game.
I feel like maybe we need to be sending Vico, Venno, and Flixie down to Moss Meadows.
Just go back, boys, please. Honestly.
Yeah. Let's just keep the drama coming. I've got my cup of tea. I'm ready for it, boys. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss Game 2. Guys, I didn't realize I booked multiple tickets to the cinema today because we are seeing picture after picture Mini Miner, and I've run out of popcorn. I mean, where do we even start with what happened in that last game? Because you can see in the standings, it's making so much of a difference. All of these trios trying to surprise each other now. And we're definitely surprised by the fact that Pablo, Fredoxy and Chino are #1. They came from the last chance qualifiers, got Mars Meadow surprisingly uncontested, and now they're just doing everything they can with it to make a claim for global championships and the Blade of Champions.
This is interesting. You know, 6 points ahead of Malibuca's team now. If Malibuca's team do go down to Vico Flixie, if they do end up landing there, what will Vico, Venom, Flixie do? It looks like Chino, Pablo, Wingo, and Fredoxy just being so consistent right now. So maybe we end up seeing the off-spawn fight that we were expecting at the beginning of the weekend. But for a lot of our teams there, lots of moving up in the standings.
I honestly, this is getting too crazy. This is a 4-host race right now because Vanya's trio, you have to remember, they're, you know, in the 400-point range. They are behind, but they have an opportunity there because the two teams ahead of them at any given point, like we saw last game, can just go down and get very minimal points, right? And so then it becomes a race between them and Pablo's trio, right? Look at that. If we have another game like that where Malibuca and Vico go down, it's going to get tough. I mean, that game for Malibuca is a bit bittersweet, right? Because they're able to get out of the off-spawn situation after all the third parties came in. Narrowly, though. Very narrowly. I think Veno's trio very much should have won that. They had so many opportunities to just clean them up. But Malibuca kept on fighting, and he reboots his team. He gets them back in the game. But from there, Mini, it's just too scuffed. They can't get a foothold on the game, and so they get very minimal points out of it.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but, you know, they did better than Vico Veneflixi, and for them, when they're getting landed on by them, that's all they need to do. They just need to keep bettering them, and that's what they're doing right now. So, yeah, for those guys, not an ideal game, but they need to start being a little bit more convincing off spawn. I think winning these fights a little bit quicker to not allow those third parties to come on through and to clean up.
Feels like we were talking a lot about Malibuca's team's consistency yesterday, the fact that the lowest they placed was an 8th, but now my eye is on Marius, Pixie and Vanya Levin, because they seem to have these clutch plays where they manage to just get themselves the highest placement point possible even when things are going wrong.
Absolutely, and that's what you need. That's what you need in an FNCS winning run, right? Vanya knows that very well. When he won his last year with Swizzy, he had 2 amazing clutches that were able to sort of help secure them the win. And that's what you're going to need today if you're going to be able to catch up with some of the people ahead of them. And they have that ability, right? I think that's never been a question when you have Marius, Vanya, and Pixie on the same team. But that consistency to keep playing in these end games when some of their top competitors might not be, right? And that's really the problem here. I would like to see more of these end games where it is all 3 of them as a trio, right? We talk about that. They're making it there, but it's a bit too scuffed at times. Maybe 1 or 2 of them still up.
Yeah, and I think they might be in the perfect position almost to sort of take home this FNCS, because they're almost the team that nobody's really concerned about, right? They're the quiet team just outside of that big top 3. So if Vico Veneflixi keep contesting Malibuca, then maybe they go and contest Fred Oxy's team. If these guys can keep being consistent, keep picking up those placements, they could find themselves with it all to play for in game number 12.
Do you see this as a team that might take risks the same way that the likes of Vico, Veno and Flixi would mini minor? Do you think they're going to change anything significantly just to try and eke themselves up into that #1 spot?
I don't think so. I don't think it's going to happen for these guys. I think they're going to stick to what they know because it's been working out. And as I mentioned, they're landing, you know, sort of towards the north side of where Vico, Ven and Flixi now are landing there at Lone Wolf Lair. So they're going to be enjoying that third-party potential and hopefully for them getting more surge. So I don't think they're going to really switch too much up because you have to remember they're in the global spots as well. So it's not like, you know, they're all out going for an FNCS win. They also want to qualify for globals, so the risk might not be worth it.
Vanya's tasted victory before. I wonder how hungry he is for it right now. We're going to head to game number 9, though, because the battle bus is ready with Taco and Takata.
I'd imagine incredibly hungry. I mean, everybody wants to be the Blade of Champions wielder, and that is exactly what's at stake here for so many of our teams, especially within that top 4, Takata. Things are getting incredibly narrow when the points are this tight-knit. Anything could happen.
It's insane. I mean, NA had an insane finish on day 1. EU, the script writer, said, we gotta match the hype here. On day 2, absolute change. And we don't have to wait long for game 9. So let's get into it.
Veno's trio has certainly been the catalyst for so much of the mayhem that's unfolded in day 2 of our Major 2 finals, Takata. But other teams are certainly taking notice. Lone Wolf Lair, if that off spawn doesn't get cleaned up very rapidly, the third-party exchanges are only going to continue to build up because teams always want to take advantages when presented with them.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they gotta finish that fight so quickly, but it's difficult to do. I mean, it's 2 of the best trios in the region, and here we go once again. I'm gonna call it a 101 draw on the most recent match. Veno, Vico, Flixi took the first one. And once again, Veno, Vico, Flixi get the drop on the top of the building. I believe Vico had a shotgun last match, and I didn't see a lot of Malibuca's trio with them, so we'll see how loot goes this time around.
Third time's the charm, though, for Veno, Vico, and Flixi. Malibuca just lurking outside the doorways. Vico and Flixi just clearing out the floors, but it's a close-in. Walks completely caught off guard.
Whoa.
Vico immediately jumping into the box with his teammates, and that is 1 pick already exchanged. Vico, Flixi, Veno, they're just going to continue tearing through now as a trio. There's no reason to separate. Flixi and Veno have taken different directions, though. They're going to reunite and ping immediately. The moment he exposes himself, just gets eliminated for it. 2 already in favor of Vico. He is out on a rampage after what went down in game 2, but that is the time to elimination. You are after other teams. If they were thinking about Lone Wolf Lair, you're gonna have to reorient where you want to go, because that's already said and done. It's gonna be tough to actually break into where Veno, Vico, and Flixi are at.
Perfectly. executed engagement there. That's how you got to do it. Now we'll see if they can get another huge game. I mean, the game that they were able to finish off Spawn that quickly in the first match, they won the whole game. So if they can repeat that, it's going to put them back into first place. For Savage, Reason and Vadil on the other hand. Reason has been eliminated, now leaving them as a duo, but they do know there's a whole trio down on the southern side of the split there, so we'll see how that plays out. But Vanya, Pixie, Marius doing what they've been doing on contested at Flooded.
And they've definitely had a pretty successful day 2 so far, but obviously they're not going to be satisfied with their current position. Again, all of these teams are shooting to actually be the champions of this season. It's not just that global championship bus ticket that you're solidifying, but the prize pool differences are also going to come into play. And for many of these teams, it's just the pride element too.
It's insane to think too. Doxy, Pablo, and Chino qualified through the last chance qualifier. Only 3 trios make it through that final opportunity. And now they're in first place of the major finals, from last chance qualifier to potentially getting the first major FNCS win for Denmark. I mean, this is an insane storyline that we have building up. We are on game 9 of 12. We've seen how much can change in just a single match, but they are en route for something legendary.
But they might be suffering from success if they're not careful. You have to remember, if Veno, Vico, and Flixie are able to replicate their Game 7 success, find that Victory Royale, I would not be the least bit surprised to see them contest Mass Meadows and shut down Doxy's team.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, you know, they have been switching it up so much. Imagine we get to game 12. First and second is basically between Doxy and Veno. They just land Mass Meadows, no, and go for it. Bring on a show. Hey, I don't want to get ahead of myself. We'll see what does end up happening, but that could be insane. For Swizzy, Queasy, and Maristache, looks like they are just kind of doing their standard Seaport base here on this hill that they always tend to go to and take shots where they can.
Just trying to keep heads up. Advantages over Thomas's team with the surge bases. Chino, Pablo, and Doxy south of Mass Meadows, but on the move. Always get a little bit scared driving when you're the one that's stuck in the back of the armored van. Maybe a little bit afraid if Doxy or Chino aren't good drivers that they're gonna send you flying from outside of that vehicle, but they just wanted the safety rotate. There's no one really around to prevent them from playing edge of zone, but they're willing to actually dip back into it because they want to go for the fight at Hopeful Heights. And Doxy creeping up, fully aware of the fact that there's still a team nearby, and it's going to be Cheatins. They don't want to allow them to exit Hopeful Heights, at least not without playing a part and looking for some knocks or elims, trying to build up that surge.
Yeah, that was a fight here in the last match. And I believe, you know, they're just trying to find kind of that sneaky 3-2-1 or anything really to catch them off guard. And this could be it.
Trexer is the one in the danger zone, and finally, Doxy's team gonna light him up. Trexer immediately knocked. Robin can't even reconsider whether or not he wants to try and help out his teammate. He is just fully on the run, cheating, completely separated from the rest of his team. Also, Doxy just chasing him out. HP advantage distinctly in Doxy's favor, and so much quicker. And Cheatin just nowhere left to run, completely edge of the map now. It just feels inevitable for Doxy's team to claim this final elimination out of the trio.
I mean, at this point, if I'm cheating, I'm using all my metal. I'm throwing all my heals. I'm saying, I'm giving you the least amount of things I can give you, because it's going to be very difficult to come out on top. But, you know, this is huge for Doxy, Chino, and Pablo. Not only did they take first in the last match, but now they're looking like they're set up for a solid game here. It's only the early game, but this is how you want to start it off.
But when Doxy's team has been repeat challenging Hopeful Heights, that's bound to cause for some adjustments for Cheatin's trio later on. We'll see what Game 10 potentially has in store for them. Scroll, I drop Sky, though. They're not willing to try and get their surge like everybody else in the base strategy. They are just, one more time, looking for the box fights outright. Whiffy Wharf. And this is nice for Scroll, iDrop, and Sky, because right now there's no third-party involvement, and that's exactly how you want to keep it when you are challenging these other teams directly.
Okay. A little bit of explosives being put on top of Rickboar. Rickboar, Zara, and Zangi they've been having some difficult moments at these matches. I feel like they're always getting aggressed on, having to play defensive. And this time around, being iDrop, Sky, and Scroll, they don't really want to give them a break.
It's just the end result of Scroll, iDrop, and Sky, and landing at Shiny Shafts, Uncon. So they're gonna have to make up for that surge damage eventually. Prodoxy, Chino, and Pablo, once they started to depart though from Hopeful Heights, countered Dexy, and Dexy just trying to get out. Chino, the huge chunk of his HP, finds the final tag. That's gonna be a knock. Just running him down entirely. Gotta be wary though, Prodoxy falling incredibly low, but the backup of his teammates, it's all said and done. Another fight going cleanly the way of Prodoxy's team. They are making a statement with each of their lobbies today, Takada.
They really are. I mean, not only were they confident before, but now after that clutch against Cammy, Seti, and Hari, they're on another level now. Just pushing trio after trio. You gotta say, okay, you know, now you can stop now, right? You got 6 eliminations, you're good. Go with the rotate, get your mats capped. Like, the job's done for now. This is incredible for them, though. They are so set up in terms of points with the elims to just play as safely as they need to, get the best positioning they can. I'm excited to see how this match plays out for them. Thomas, Uppel, and Panzer had a rough game in the last match. They were looking for a good position, but Thomas ended up getting caught off guard, I believe, by Ping when he was playing as a solo. Kind of split up the trio, and they weren't able to get a lot of points. So we'll see if that changes this time around at Seaport. Got to have your eyes on, you know, where's Queasy at.
But at the end of the day, all Thomas, Uppel, and Panzer really need to do is maintain that position inside of that top 7 threshold on the leaderboard. They're skirting the line though, in 6th, heading into this lobby. And with so many teams close behind, they probably want to have a pretty standout performance to kind of just separate them from the rest of the pack. Mustache and Swizzy, they're gonna have to take a detour all the way back into Storm. Hope that they don't attract too much attention for it. Losing Queasy, a pretty big blow to their rotational strategies, and they've been forced out of Seaport entirely.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the amount of trios kind of around Seaport at this point. Normally, Queasy's taking advantage of these trios. You know, he's shooting them now on their base as they're rotating through, even letting them pass in some examples and continuing to take those shots. But after getting eliminated, that's gonna, you know, damage a big part of the whole Surge strat. So I'm curious to see how they're going to hold up in terms of damage later on into this match now, with this being the case.
Well, they made it over to Shining Span, so Queasy will be brought back into the action. But yeah, with so many teams inside of Seaport itself, these guys are certainly in for a bit of a doozy. Launchpad will help them out just a little bit, but one positive I think to keep in mind is it's usually Swizzy and Mustache who are on surge damage duties, so they might not have lost as much as what they could have possibly lost in terms of having to play for Queasy's reboot. It is still annoying though when you lose that prime positional advantage. Twy punishing Savage and Vadil. They were looking for a fringe play themselves, trying to get Reason back into the match, and Twy's team, they had to pounce on the opportunity. They've been playing a huge catch-up game for the entire weekend.
Now Demas Pix and Darm have only made it into the top 10 once. And when they did, you know, get 9 eliminations. They had a good game, but they really are having difficulties. Actually, I'm mistaken. They made it to the top 10 a few times. And when they do, they perform well. They've gotten 4th, 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 3rd. But a lot of games, they're also getting eliminated around 20th. So they're kind of just lacking that, you know, consistency of constantly making top 10s, but it's balanced out enough to put them in 10th going into this match. Issue is, you got to be top 7 if you want to qualify to the Global Championship. So they're going to have to do a little better for these last few matches.
And I know in Major 1, these guys were given that, you know, shock the world conclusion because of their 5th place performance with their first time finals appearance as a team. But even if this major doesn't pan out how they would obviously be hoping for, it's really just the tip of the iceberg. Those guys still have such a high skill ceiling that they can keep trying to push towards. I mean, the coach like Sven behind them, wouldn't be surprised to see them reach that threshold at a pretty rapid rate. But teams like Cammy, Hardy, Seti, they already know what it takes to be in those winning positions. And it's going to come a relatively difficult way for them because every other team has the same strategy in mind. We are looking for our surge bases.
There's a lot of them around this side of the map. It's one of those clusters. I mean, we talked about it, minimizing risk, but at the same time, it would be nice to see a little bit more close quarters combat. This is good, though, for Vanya, Marius, and Pixie. They can keep themselves safe, looking for damage when they, you know, see the openings, and even be on the uncongested side if Zone continues pulling up north. Vico Venoflixie's still at the same spot. They dropped that. They did have Island spawn close to them as well, which is pretty nice.
They didn't really have a reason to leave Lone Wolf considering how the zone pool, but Queasy, Merstash, Swizzy possibly in a spot of trouble here, dealing with Trulex and Noah Riley. Health advantage in their favor, though. Trulex not wanting to get stuck between Swizzy, but Rock in a hard place. There's nowhere left for him to run. Trulex will be eliminated. Noah Riley could be next. Swizzy certainly hunting for it. Merstash gonna take a moment just to replenish his shields. But with Swizzy and Queasy playing backup, Shark is just forced to retreat. 2 of the fraggers, though. That's probably who you'd want to be left in a fighting position out of Trulex's team. They could make something big happen here. They could also pose a huge problem if they do find another knocker elimination onto Queasy's team. And Queasy's team, they know better than to stick around for it. They already got what they were after in terms of damage. They want to just start rotating out now because the lobby has started to take notice of what's going down on this mountainside.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. They weren't able to do their normal surge route, so opting to kind of needing to take a fight. It's a good idea to do now before you're in desperation being low on surge. Pablo, Fred, and Chino now in zone. We saw they got those 6 eliminations early on, so they're more than comfortable enough here to not do anything too crazy. 832 above.
It's exactly where they want to be, and they're not caught in the heart of some of the congestion that's actually building inside of Flooded Frogs. So many teams just looking to try and leverage some of the natural landscape. Thomas, Uppel, Panzer, also a little bit on the outskirts. And Thomas, Panzer, Uppel, they're just going to continue trying to find their own position. It's away from most of the commotion. Unfortunately, Thomas realizing that there are teams that have a slightly elevated point of view and taking advantage of it.
Yeah, they don't really mind to kind of stay in zone here. They know it's very likely that people rotate through, especially the Magic Mosses area. You can see with the drone shot, the trios that are going to be choosing to do so as well. It is kind of a waiting game for now, though. They even pulled zone. Not bad at all. See them moving around. They're like, hold on a minute. Wait, we already got a base here. We can just kind of take it over, make it ours. Little surprised with the RNG from that pull, but this is good.
No complaints though either. Definitely a nice spot to be in. Just repurposing some of these pre-existing builds, but some real big powerhouse teams off in the distance that could definitely be held here by Thomas's trio. And Queasy though, everybody always commends his IG yelling, and for good reason. He knows better. He knows that if they try to just white line into zone, they're only going to be picked off for it. They're going to do a complete wraparound through Magic Mosses. Swizzy does have a couple of medkits on top of the med miss grenade, so the white heals might be enough to sustain them through, and they are just holding out with the damage threshold too. So waiting things out could end up saving them from being eliminated too soon.
There's the last zone that can kind of do that, though. It goes from 1 tick to 2 tick in this zone, and after it, it's going to be 5 tick, the damage that they receive from being inside the storm. So kind of want to start making their way closer and closer to the zone to prepare for that 7th zone when it does start doing 5 damage per second. Thomas, Uppel, and Panzer, though, great job holding on to the base. As it looks like Vico Venoflixi opting to a similar strat.
Yeah, just such a tough spot for Queasy's team because it would look like it was going to be a nice wraparound. They realized too much commotion still coming through flooded frogs. We're not going to be able to go that way either. But Veno's team also benefits. Pixie trying to get the revive off now onto Marius. Other teams, though, looking in, trying to see if they can claim Marius's life. But Chino, Prodoxy, Pablo, no success. No success either for Pink's team. And this could be an outright brawl between these 3 trios. Pixie, Vanya, and Marius, though, they just don't want to be sandwiched. They're not interested in being the middleman for this conversation. They don't necessarily need to fight right now either.
It's quite unfortunate because they literally pulled zone all the way and flooded their drop spot. So getting the focus on them is not what you want happening. But they aren't going to choose to kind of elevate themselves yet. They're just going to stay in the builds they already had. Surprised Marius is at 0 metal at this point, having, you know, to not rotate that much throughout the match, but it is the most scarce resource. Just kind of camp it to see in case someone goes through the porter party, but for now they're good.
Marius is just waiting for the green light, holding out that splash. He knows they've got to move ahead of the lobby. And Thomas just doing what Thomas does best with that mythic drum gun, spraying and controlling the flow of the teams outside of where they're currently based up. But Panzer, just sliver of HP, somehow manages to finagle his way back to his team. But this is a troublesome spot. Everybody that was shooting this direction bound to know how incredibly hurt Panzer is. And sure enough, they're not letting up the pressure. Panzer completely dropped now. Seti, Hari, Cammy overtaking the high position that Thomas once held moments ago. But the double revive will at least work out. They've got to get out of this spot, though. They don't want to get caught waiting just one step too long. They're trying to clear out a path forward. They're trying to force some of the other teams ahead of them to move to a separate spot. But everybody just trapped right now in edge of zone.
Yeah, I mean, not only did they lose a good opportunity for, or a good position, but also just the opportunity for those tags. For Doxy, Pablo, and Chino, though, luckily enough, don't have to worry as much about that, and even have pulled 8th zone here. This is massive for them as they're going to conserve so many materials and have free shots on the players around them. As you can see, already pre-building out with those hard builds, getting ready for what's to come. Merch, Stash, Swizzy, Queasy, though, are below, getting ticked by Surge. Put them into panic, as now all they need to do is connect one shot. Obviously, they want to be above as much as possible, but come on, one bullet is all it's going to take to stop losing HP here.
A literal single shot. It does seem like they finally managed to find it, but still only 8 above. Flubshy's team now trying to barrel into their builds, but that's the hits that we need, and Merstash gonna find 2 back-to-back eliminations. Couldn't have come at a better time. The Siphon also going to make it easy for him to reunite with Queasy and Swizzy, but still a lot of congestion towards this backside of the zone. But with that additional damage, They now feel confident to be able to just kind of scale their way, elevate a little bit from that total low ground, and try to find their next position. Not an easy task, though, by any means.
Up above, it's gonna be Shaftsky. Luckily enough, did not take fall damage, which is good. Vico, Veno, Flixi, on the other hand, trying to be the first ones here to rotate towards this side. Will they see it as an option to build up, or will they just play it safe here and keep on building into zone? We've seen them do height takes quite later on in these matches. They're not so focused on doing it early if the zones aren't in their favor. But Merstash, Queasy, and Swizzy are going to be the ones that are looking to hold it.
Okay, Merstash on a bit of a roll now. 4 eliminations, and he has found all of them in the past couple of minutes. Trying to get to this front side, and it's going to cost Queasy everything. So he gets knocked along the way. Always a bit of a risky maneuver, but Merstash, he doesn't care. He knows it's just time to frag out. Swizzy, too, finds Seti on the rotate. That's going to sabotage Poland just a bit here, but Swizzy, if he's not careful, he'll find himself in a similar route. He's just going to break through the builds, tag along with Merstash now. He at least has that Lawless Slap Jug, but how much more do they have to do? There's so many other teams on the low ground, and for Doxy's team, they are based in a pretty set mid layer. Looking down at the front side low, Chicho and Tayson, they might have to deal with Doxy's team shortly.
Vanya, Marius, Pixie with the zone pull were able to claim height. Vico, Veno, Flixi down below, trying to see if they can claim low for now. A lot of full trios that are up and ready to go. Cringe Volko on the side, doing what they can to get into zone. Right now, just anything possible to stay up.
This is home field, though, for Vico, Flixi, and Veno. This is where they found success in Major 1 finals. So for it to be running back now, Vico, Flixi, Veno, they are just trailing through this front side low. Chino on the other end of the wall. Chino will manage to escape, but Vico, he is looking for the elims wherever he can find them. Upall just trying to remain concealed. Out of sight, out of mind type mentality. Gonna try and even utilize a team's madness grenade, but doesn't even make it in. Gets eaten alive. Marius, Pixie, Vanya, though, this is a nice spot to be. They've got the high ground control, but they are low on mats. They're just trying to spray and prevent any teams from challenging the height takeover. But they need to be careful. They don't want to overexpose themselves. And with these wood builds, teams are going to be looking to chop them out.
Chops are coming through. They're doing a good job maintaining. The issue is, you got the #1 trio for Doxy, Pablo, Chino. All 3 players are still up. They are playing this perfectly in terms of securing as much placement as possible. They have not even had to look for a single refresh for a majority of this endgame, but now's the time. They're starting to run through. Their aggression's onto them. Pink knocking on the door. Is going to get knocked down. Nebs falls shortly after. Pablo, Chino for Doxy now continuing to build on towards zone.
From teammates to enemies, Pablo, Chino for Doxy. Then they get that wipe onto Pink as a tough blow. But Veno, he's still a part of the conversation. He already found a victory royale in the day in match 7, and you can tell that he's after it yet again. Pablo just trying to maintain a little bit of composure in that mid ground, but Veno, Flixi, Vico, they are just steadily so tightly knit. And for Doxy, could be in a world of trouble here, but Veno, he's just trying to break through. Darm, Demas, Pix, they are still a trio, but for how much longer? Because Vico, Flixi, Veno, they chop them down. And that's going to be the first elimination onto Darm. Flixi having been return fire, though. This is a big casualty, though, for Doxy's team. Mayday situation, and they are out of the running here.
With 7 eliminations, there's a reason he's leading the pack in the lobby, but I might have spoken too soon. Marius shuts him down. This is perfect for Vanya, Pixie, and Marius. They had all the trios down below face off against each other. Now, giving them that player advantage, 2 trios left. 6 players, all they need to do is close this off, but Pixie has been knocked down. Chug Jug in hand, 6 splashes. Med Mist, is it going to be enough to win the heal off?
That's going to be the only intention here, but Vanya is getting completely chased out. Atris hot on his heels. Atris knows if I don't find this final shot, that's going to leave it down to Tayson to try and see if he can battle it out for the heal off. But Vanya, he's managed to find a plethora of whites, another Menmis grenade, another Chug Jug even. Sure, they're just remnants, but it could be the difference maker here. Tayson now on the move. Tayson doesn't have any whites remaining. He's just trying to find Vanya. He breaks into the box, but Tayson can't get the final shot. Vanya manages to hold on here, and that was nearly disastrous for Vanya's team, but a huge moment that they were able to capitalize on.
So close to a tragic ending. Tayson connected his shot, but it was just, what, 10, 15 damage away from taking out Vanya, and he was able to close it out. It was basically a 1 versus 3. He managed to escape while all 3 of Tayson's players, were still up and going. He managed to start the heal off. He closed the gap when Tayson pushed in, and they ended up securing that win. This is going to shake up the leaderboard.
It's just crazy to think, though, that Vanya nearly missed out on securing the win here, but respect to Tayson. You've got to put some respect on Tayson's name for trying to run him down at the end there. Still, a lot that took place here in Game 9. So, Frankie, what have you got for us?
Well, I've got the feeling that Tayson remembered that this is a major final, and so he was like, oh yeah, I'm always in those. I need to show up. And a fantastic second place for his trio, onwards and upwards for those guys. However, it's more of the same from Marius, Pixie, and Vanya Mini Miner. A 3rd victory royale. I'm not going to question Vanya's hunger ever again.
Yeah, wow. I mean, we talked about it going into that game, how important it is now for them to step up to the plate and really just keep applying that pressure onto that sort of top 2 that are battling it out right now. And they've just done that with aplomb right there. Really great work from those guys. What I liked about that end game, as we saw in individual moments in those highlights, was every single teammate, every single player in that trio had an impact. We saw Pixie going absolutely crazy there at the backside of zone, getting elimination using the new mobility, or the new movement, I should say. We saw, of course, Marius jumping into the box of Vico there at the end to eliminate him, and then of course Vanya right at the end, just surviving on 5 HP. Every single person played their part, and that's what that trio is so good at.
Once again, Mini Man are just summing it up perfectly, right? I mean, you look at... No, genuinely though, but it's spot on. They have been so relentlessly good at all having a big impact, right? And I think that's one of the things when this team first formed. I think when you looked at, you have 3 big names, 3 talented players. It's like, how do they gel together as a team? They've done that excellently, but games like this where they do show the individual impact each of them can have, it is part of why they are a team, again, that has to be considered in that formula, right? When I was talking before the game, I said, look, it's a 4-horse race. These guys are in it with another good game, and straight away, they come through and win the next game. So you love to see it. I'm just so curious about how the leaderboard looks now, Frankie, because there were so many of our top teams in that endgame, so many good teams in that endgame. Of course, we're looking at the race for who's actually going to win it all, but even just some of the teams just below fighting for global spots, a lot of those teams were in it at the end there. So it's really heating up in the back end of this tournament now.
That top 10 was indeed full of big names you would expect to make it to the Fortnite Global Championships, but we only have 5 spots for our trios tonight, so we'll be finding out who is going to be edging ever closer to Leon after this break. Welcome back to the FNCS Europe Major 2 finals. We have 3 more games before we find out who will be taking the Blade of Champions, and it's getting tougher and tougher at the top. So we should take a look at the leaderboard and see who's currently in pole position, because this is such an interesting one. We definitely were not expecting Chino, Pablo and Fredoxy to show up with this level of ferocity and consistency mini-minor. It's interesting to see Vanya, Pixie and Marius with 3 victory royales. The reason they're not currently number 1 is because they didn't necessarily have the best day 1. But do you think if they can continue on this trajectory, they'll be challenging for that number 1 spot?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is a team that, as we just broke down right there, they have all the ingredients for success. They're just outside of that, sort of top 2, so they're not necessarily going to be focused on by maybe Vico, Veno, Flixi. Who knows, that might change. But yeah, really great stuff from Chino, Pablo and Fredoxy, who, they haven't been in this situation before, right? This is a team that we don't necessarily see in this position, but they're just stepping up to the plate and they're doing it very well.
So Vico, Veno and Flixi, let's talk about these guys. Still sitting in 2nd position. Oh, sorry, let's talk about Chino. Why not? Let's talk about Chino, Pablo and Fredoxy 11, because, I mean, it's a lovely fragging movie every single time we watch these guys.
Absolutely. I think the key thing that we have to say about this team now is going into the back end of the tournament, they've been so consistent that really and truly there isn't going to be something that sort of, becomes a problem for them and stops them from, getting to end games unless someone lands on them, right? Like, it's sort of like how Malabuka was yesterday and going into today. We were all saying, unless someone lands on them, they're just going to keep on playing these games out. Their surge plan is so ironclad, they're going to keep making it to end games. Similar thing can be said now for Fredoxy. So unless, Veno's Trio, which we obviously know they landed Master Meadows this season, decides, hey, we're going to land on you guys, I think it's going to be hard for anyone to almost overtake them. They're going to keep making it deep into these games.
Well, I feel like the obvious thing to predict would be Vico, Veno and Flixi. They destroy Malabuka's trio again at Lone Wolf Lair, like they did in game number 9 that we just witnessed. And then potentially they do set their sights on the guys above them, 11. Do you think that could be on the cards?
Yeah, and I have to say, we really do need to talk about that off spawn. As much as the endgame was great, they wiped them mini so quickly. Like, that must have been so demoralizing for Malabuka, Wox, and Ping. And this next game is going to be a huge test of their character. How can they bounce back from that? Because, we've all played Fortnite. We've all been there before where you do go down off spawn a couple games in a tournament, and it is rough. Like, you start questioning things. And with how great their tournament was going mini to how things are stacking up now and them sort of dropping and falling a bit behind the rest of the competition here at the top, yeah, I'm wondering how their mentals are handling this.
Yeah, I said it earlier, and that game just proved it yet again. The Vico, Veno, Flixi are making it look like Malabuka's team are now the team that are coming on into this drop spot. They just seem to know it inside and out. Their synergy is unreal at the moment, and yeah, it's absolutely right. Will they now use that confidence to really go on and kick on and hopefully find some more success in these games? Because if there's any team that you don't want to be giving confidence to off spawn and then later on in the game, it's these guys. They play off of that confidence, they feed off of it, and it just sets the tone for the entire game when they do win off spawn. So yeah, they got to do something here, Malabuka, to stop the wrath of this guy's off spawn.
Well, let's see what they do, because game 10 is ready. Let's head to Taco and Takata.
I like what you said, Frankie. I like what you said, because if you do think about it, Veno, Vico, Flixi, they end up, wiping Malabuka off spawn again. And then they're kind of in that first and second battle against Fredoxy, and, they're landing the drop spot that they're comfortable with. Will they make another change? I don't know. What are your thoughts, Taka?
The problem, though, is if they do challenge Mass Meadows, then that means that Malabuka, Ping, and Wox are left to reign free from Lone Wolf Lair, and we saw how much success they had when uncontested for the most part in day 1. Doubt that they want to let that go for free, but we'll find out exactly what Veno's up to here in Game 10.
There's a lot that can happen, but I do believe that at least for this next match, we will have that Malabuka versus Veno once again at Lone Wolf. Fredoxy's trio, on the other hand, hopefully uncontested and can continue kind of with their first place wrath. But this is getting interesting. This is definitely getting interesting.
It's been building over the course of these past few lobbies, and knowing that there is no point multiplier has been a real separating factor here. These teams fully aware of the fact that they've just got to perform through each and every single lobby. You can't afford a slip up in day 2. But Vico, Veno, Flixi, they just continue to try and brute force Lone Wolf Flare away from Malabuka's trio. And if they have the same success that they did in Game 9, Takata, it would mean disastrous results potentially for Malabuka's team, because everyone else on the leaderboard also starting to play catch up.
It's like, once again, perfect drop for Vico. Looks like the same for his teammates once again. Last time they were able to finish this fight up quickly. You were mentioning it, but it's easier said than done. That Sentinel shotgun is going to help. Double shotgun, actually, alongside shields. This could be huge for Vico, Veno, Flixi. All they have to do is start aggressing.
Vico wants to be careful, though. Infiltrator not necessarily as optimal as the Sentinel can be, but Malabuka, he wants revenge. He's sick and tired of what Veno has been doing to his team's odds for wielding that blade of champions. They want to actually get the ball rolling here at Lone Wolf, but if they don't find a conclusion to this fight, it could also mean a third party. Flixi overhead. Even exchange so far. Vico trying to use the Thermite now to break open some builds. Both of these teams incredibly low on materials, haven't really had a chance to farm, but Wox, he might be the first one counted out. Ping, Malabuka, they've got to do something to try and play some supportive measures here for Wox.
They're taking too long, Taco. They're taking too long once again. Not a single knock has been made. You can see the trio's kind of creeping on in. I wonder if they're ever going to make that decision after this fight. You know, is it too late? Once the third parties actually arrive and you can see them beside you, you get to the point where, you know, we might not even be able to take this fight, and both trios have to kind of disengage with not a good amount of loot. And so far, it's looking like it's going to be a slow one.
The third party would probably be more of a concern if it wasn't for the fact that Veno, Vico, Flixi, Malabuka's team, there haven't been any knocks from either direction. So you have to be a little bit hesitant if you are that third party, because you don't know the state of affairs for either of these teams currently. So the third party, sure, they're hovering the vicinity, but they don't feel quite confident to strike just yet, and for good reason. But Malabuka just continuing to play the stealth game, continuing to try and gather whatever builds he can. Flixi, heavy duress, he's got to bail out. Malabuka trying to cut him off, but Veno, he'll be the supportive overlook for Flixi. Try to keep Malabuka's team at bay, and Veno also keeping tabs on the surrounding area, fully aware of the fact that this is an open invitation for third parties with how drawn out it's been so far.
Yeah, I mean, we saw on the minimap, though, there aren't any players incredibly close. You have a really glove shoots trio who's kind of like looking, but they're not fully scouting beside Lone Wolf yet. If this continues taking longer, though, it might get to that point. As so far, it is just that back and forth, playing the vault game. Looking to see who can get the bigger trade. Shots come through, nothing connecting.
The problem, though, is that Veno's team has funneled everybody from Malabuka's into that vault, and with the loot differences, Veno, Vico, Flixi probably gonna have to back off temporarily. Malabuka, Ping, Wox still trying to see if there's a clear opening for them to try and find the upper hand at last. It's also, like Minnie mentioned, a matter of pride and confidence. You don't want your confidence to start to waver, and if Malabuka's team can't find some kind of winning conversion factor here, it's always going to be a little bit of a mental game on the players.
They've kind of let them out of the vault now, as they don't want to take that kind of back and forth right on the borderline on the doorway. Both teams just getting as many materials as they can. You can see when you reach this level, these players are constantly doing something. Even if you're waiting for a team, you're constantly farming, you're constantly doing what you can to give yourself that upper hand. Even scouting around the surroundings, you know, is there any other trio creeping up on us? Are we good to take this fight? Are we safe? And I feel like it's coming soon.
The Lone Wolf Mansion has been absolutely gutted, though. Holes everywhere, floors just missing all over the place. but that's providing some decent angles that Veno was clearly trying to make use of. Malabuka, Ping, Walks, they know better than to separate. They know that could be the differentiating factor between being knocked or eliminated versus a winning conclusion here. Vico just continuing to pressure. Veno clearing out even more floor space. They want as many angles as possible before they make this approach. But this fight has been going on forever, Takata, and neither side really getting enough damage. Other teams, even if they don't third party, they're still handling their search strategy. But these guys are going to be one step behind the rest of the lobby.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken that long. The zone can pull far, or even it can stay here. Either option, they're going to be behind. Veno, Vico, Flixi have decided, okay, we got to, you know, we already farmed up all we can here. We've done what we could. I guess we got to start, you know, moving around, doing more productive things. So we'll see how it plays out overall. The fight isn't finished yet, I'm sure. But for Doxy, Chino, and Pablo, though, they have been kind of leaning towards third-partying, hopeful when it gets stuck in zone and finding those fights around there. But this time around, it is going to be a Surge base.
One of just 3 teams that haven't had to deal with those Surge damage ticks. It was a big part of the reason why, too. Their Surge-based methods, on top of their challenges at Hopeful Heights. When they don't feel like they've acquired enough Surge from inside the base, they take matters into their own hands. They're willing to go that extra mile and find a more direct fight if necessary. Thomas, Panzer, and Uppel, though, definitely being wary as they make their way around Hopeful. And they're also trying to nestle themselves inside of that top 10 of the leaderboard. When you know that Vico and Malabuka's teams are inside of the top 5, obviously it's going to drop an extra couple of spots for the leaderboard, but Thomas, Uppel, and Panzer, they don't want it to be close. They want to confidently be inside of that threshold.
Yeah, and I mean, literally being the cutoff at 7th place, I mean, it's not going to feel bad, but it's not going to feel great, right? Like you said, you want to be a bit more comfortable at this point. All it takes is one good game. Vico, Veno, and Flixi. Vico has been popping off, as always, in terms of eliminations. I mean, he's literally leading the pack in the lobby at 38 elims, and 2nd place has 23. So it's not even close for this trio. I mean, it can consider the fact that they have just been playing around fighting throughout this whole weekend, different drop spots, constantly looking for third parties, and obviously popping off in those end games. But it is impressive. They want to go 4 for 4 this year. They want to not just take home the majors. They want to take home the global championship. They already booked their tickets in Major 1. And to continue that trend, they're going to have to win this major as well.
But any top team would want to assume that they're going to be capable of winning out every single event. You have to have that confidence as a player, because there are going to be moments where you can't look to cruise. And this is one of them for sure, because Veno, he wasn't content with how day 1 worked out for them. Obviously, they were able to get some nice upsets, but they weren't willing to just let Malabuka have his way. And looking for those high risk, looking for those immediate challenges, it's something that a lot of these other teams are probably going to start setting up for Takata, because they know if they are outside of that top 7 cutoff, they only have, you know, we are past the halfway point. Only this lobby and a couple more to go, and after that, if you're out, you're out.
And it looks like Grippe is going to land a good amount of shots here on Marius. You don't want to be going out this early. Pena, Pixie, Marius instantly going to box up, take some shots back and forth. Looks like Grippe, Glepshian, Prax, though, they want more than just a few tags. Said, we don't want to do the AR shots from afar. We want to get up close and personal. Take these fights for Surge. They see the shots come from afar. They see the danger potential and decide, okay, we got enough for now.
Grippe getting lit up from Lone Wolf Lair because Malabuka's team is still in control of that position. And them being forced to reconsider their approach. That's that's definitely a pretty tough spot to be in. But it's not like they can't circle back through. Swizzy, Merstache, and Queasy, on the other hand, it's been a relatively volatile day two. Certainly not the kind of day two that we might have anticipated based off how day one went for Queasy, Swizzy, and Merstache. But the way that some of these teams have made their adjustments, it's been very difficult for these guys to kind of maintain their position at Seaport.
To be fair, they've played quite similar to yesterday if you just take out the win. If they never won that match, their placements aren't too bad. An 8th, a 5th, a 15th. They're getting to those late games, but they're missing that big game. We know how often they kind of play for those big matches with the height. So I'm sure, you know, we've got this match, another two after it. At least one of them, we can hopefully see them take home a VR, which would put them in kind of that range of potentially being able to win. But they're still in qualifying range for the Global Championships, so you got to be happy about that at least.
There's so much pressure on Pink and Nebs, though, especially when they're witnessing their former teammate Chino holding down that first place position on the leaderboard. Meanwhile, they are just outside of that leaderboard range, 8th. And obviously, I'm with Levin. I love to see a little bit of, you know, turmoil between teams, because it just makes for a good storyline, and that's something that Pink and Nebs, they don't want to let Chino have the ultimate bragging rights.
They really don't. But hey, it's all about that friendly competition. That's an insane stat from Tayson, Atris, and Chicho. I mean, yesterday they had some rough matches. 25th, 31st, 23rd. But now that they've switched up their drop spot, you see top 3 in every game. That's no easy task.
Benno, Vico, and Flixie, though, they found their next targets. Moneymaker, faded, F9, struggling a little bit here. Another team potentially pointed into the mix, but Vico, Flixie from overhead, just steadily cornering Moneymaker's trio. Benno now holding down another angle. Vico and Flixie pressuring the front side. Moneymaker might get a little bit isolated, and that's what Vico is waiting for. He's trying to get the advantageous position, but Flixie actually going to get turned and burned, faded, and benign.
Oh no.
While Moneymaker had them distracted, and what once looked like such a promising situation is now completely turned against them. Savage, Vidil, and Reason now going to enter the fray. Benno and Vico forced to just try and escape here, but Moneymaker faded for 9. What a bite back.
When you thought it couldn't get any worse, a whole other trio after your teammate goes down. I mean, I can see them getting out of this situation, especially as you can see now if Savage takes on the fight with them, but I don't know. They're just going to be in such shambles after this, even if they get out. Another duo, potentially full trio, also rolling in from the sideline. This is just going to be so tough to get out of. But I mean, we saw what Malabuka did in the last match as a solo. Even more shambles than Venno and Vico here. So it's definitely possible, but this is going to be incredibly tough.
Savage's team doesn't really want to allow for that to just play out and both teams to kind of disperse. Walks, Malabuka, Ping. They've created a whole world of trouble, though, for Seti and Cammy. Hari trying to see if he can get away, but it's no use. Chased down by Malabuka's trio. So where Venno is struggling, Malabuka certainly on the come up. Queasy, Swizzy, and Merstache, they could also be in a spot of trouble, but Foxy Floodgate kind of set and waiting, making sure that they're healthy before they move out of here. What I wanted to reference, though, is the fact that Vico and Venno, as a duo now, sure, it's possibly still a fight that they can take, but even if they get a knock onto somebody from Moneymaker's team, they're still going to have to deal with Savage, Odile, and Reason. That might even be what Reason's trio is waiting for. They're just waiting for this fight to pick up again before they jump in and cause even more chaos.
Hey, Savage finally pulled the zone, though. Let's see what they can do with it. Wouldn't be surprised if they get a big game here. It's what they're looking for. They need to push themselves back up the leaderboard. So as Veno and Vico hold on, Moneymaker, the 9, doing what they can to kind of continue with this fight. But yeah, either trio here, if you got the team up at Outlaw kind of looking back at you after this, it's gonna be tough.
Moneymaker's team's just crouching around. Veno hasn't been spotted just yet, but Moneymaker's gotta be careful. F9 gonna be the first one, lose a bit of his shields. Vico and Veno, though, they're gonna have to convert some of these shield attempts into full knocks and eliminations. They want to extend things much longer because they are below the surge threshold. That early hiccup at Lone Wolf Lair now coming back to haunt them, forcing them into such an awkward situation, an awkward fight here up against Moneymaker's team, and they are on the losing end of it. Veno will fall. It's only Vico left standing, and this leaderboard, that's gonna put a big smile onto Malibuca's face if he's watching that elimination feed. And Vico, sure enough, can't withstand. Reason's team has re-entered the conversation and closed up what Moneymakers had started.
Yeah, you called it. They were just waiting for them to take that fight. Capitalized on the situation. Now our second place trio is out of the game. And the whole other top 5 are still up. I might have spoken too soon. Pablo Fordoxy Chino in a fight. Looks like it was up against Thomas and his team. Are they just going for back and forths? Do they want to fully commit to this? They are kind of far away from the zone. So yeah, it looks like they need to. 190 below 215 now. Upwell goes down. Thomas and Panzer have to get in here.
But who is the superior Dane when it comes to the box fight? Fordoxy managing to hold on. Thomas HD eliminated. Panzer follows with him. And Upwell cleaned up in the fight. Another big 3 eliminations, only furthering the elimination point lead. Gino, Pablo, Fordoxy, they've had their work cut out for them here in day 2, but they are delivering in these lobbies.
That's a tough one. Being on the borderline of qualifying to the global championship. Thomas HD, Panzer, and Upwell literally 7th place now. Getting forced to fight, taken out of the game. To the #1 trio. Gotta give props to Fordoxy, Chino, and Pablo, though. They have been doing an amazing job getting eliminations leading up to these end games. Not just looking for tags from afar, but actually being able to convert these fights into good amount of damage, full refreshes, and those extra elimination points. This is what they need to do if they want to hold on to first place.
There just wasn't any other options, though, for Thomas. They were going to fight whoever it was, whether it was Fordoxy or anybody else. It's just what happens when you find yourself underneath Surge. Radius, Venya, Pixie, they're based. They're trying to cut off Chap's team. They recognize the fact Teeny so low. They heard the shields crack, but they want to stay ahead. They don't want to get caught in this swarm of players approaching on the backside of zone. Marius managed to get some decent tags along the way, but not going to lose sight of the fact that they want to make sure that they are maintaining a strong position, leading the way.
You can see just how many players are rotating from this side of the zone. Malibuca walks in paying that. It's a tough start. Not having a huge opportunity to, you know, take the original route, get all the loot they're used to, but you can see from the 6 eliminations they've racked up, that insane refresh that they just picked up now as well. They are more back than ever, and based on the consistency from yesterday, I mean, when they were actually making it to those late games, they were getting top 3 almost every single game, so they need that big game today.
Also have to remember how dominant they looked in the low ground while doing so. Sure, their early game plan was all about surge basing and how accurate they could be with the assault rifles, but the way that they controlled frontside low so consistently throughout yesterday's lobbies is definitely impressive. Pink opened up for a peek and instead has to wait for the double revive. Thankfully, Yasin not close enough to be able to actually break through that wall, but it is going to force them to pause for a moment. Fordoxy now with that mythic drum gun. He's trying to make something big happen here on the low ground. And with the way that his team's been playing all day, it's got to be a massive momentum swing after that last fight. And Savage just added to the tally. One more elimination, another one possibly here in Reason. And Vadil left just trying to figure out where to go next. Pablo, Gina, and Ferdoxy, they've got things completely figured out though. Just hold this control of the low ground.
8th zone is gonna pull towards the shore as well. You gotta think to yourself, can it even double pull towards the zone? Or towards the water, sorry. Is it worth it to kind of play on the land side here of the zone? Famous darn picks though. See that as a perfect opportunity. Malabuka elevating themselves. Pink needs to have a good performance here. With Thomas HD having gotten eliminated, the one trio that's above them, they cannot afford to go down here. It's their shot to put themselves back in qualifying range for the global championship. As Malabuka's forced to drop down, gets cracked, but he makes it out alive. Just 32 above though, they need to find damage.
Pink following suit though, and Pink is incredibly low, just behind Wax, Malabuka, and Pink. He's not careful. Wax could be looking for the closing blow, but it won't come to fruition just yet. Malabuka, Ping, and Wax now gonna just try to run forward, stay out of eyesight. Vanya, Pixie, they've been spotted and focused by the lobby. Cruel as ever for Doxy, Chino, and Pablo on the other hand. Very nice position. Just looking back and spraying other teams on low ground. Trying to wait for a pre-edit opportunity possibly, and Wax, Malabuka, they've been so pressured since the start of this 8th zone here in Takata because they're just barely above the damage threshold, and the lobby isn't thinning out as quickly as it needs to be for them to stop being threatened by it, but it's gonna be a big opportunity onto Pixdarm and Demas. It's not gonna net anything just yet though.
Queasy, Swizzy Mustache up above. We said they needed that big match. Can they make it a reality here? Pixie Vanya left as a duo, one of the top contending teams to take home this whole tournament. They need to get at least a decent amount of points. They don't need to win this match. They just need to stay up as long as possible, at least use up all their materials, but a refresh here is truly what they're looking for.
Oh, the bush wasn't enough to fully conceal, and Vanya pays the price. Pixie forced to separate now, maybe hoping, optimistic for a drop from either Gian or Robin that he might be able to get a straight tag onto someone for a refresh, but as a solo in the low ground, it's always gonna get messy. Pablo, Gino, and Ferdoxy though, they've started to elevate themselves just steadily higher. Still not in control of height, so that's gonna belong to Swizzy, Mustache, and Queasy. But if they can work their way through this mid-ground, they might be able to just take over and make something big happen.
Doing a great job. This is what we love to see from Ping, Wax, and Malabuka. Their chemistry was at an all-time high yesterday. Can they continue that forwards? As Pablo is running into a bit of a panic here. He's lost for Doxy, left as a duo with Chino. They need to clutch out as many points as possible. Although Vanya's trio is incredibly low, they still have to put on a performance. Zangi could be that refresh that they need. The chase goes into zone. The shot is not able to connect. Pablo, he might have just trapped himself. He goes down on the hunt, leaving Chino alone.
There weren't many other options though. He just needed to break through, but Chino now is a solo. Every placement counts. They're just trying to build as much of a lead as possible, but he knows there's so many teams kind of just swarming around his current location. And Chino down to his final build. He's just trying to play backside. He's just praying that somebody runs out in front of him who's incredibly low. And Zangi, he picks up where he last left off. Zangi will finally be eliminated here, but Chino, he has to just keep it pushing. He doesn't have a chance to really sit back and wait. Finally gonna be able to utilize that water sprite, but coned up and just trying to stay hidden for as long as possible.
Did a great job elevating himself though. It went up a ridge. Malabuka's left alone. He sees Janice. Doesn't fully take the fight yet. Just 4 builds remaining. As he runs lower and lower, he has to look back now, find these players that are staggered, but a player right into his box. He takes him out. His focus. That is a huge refresh. Now with the Siphon mats, he can get a little further, but with the full trios looking back, it's just making it that much more difficult.
The but we're looking at some of our leading teams in absolute shambles on the low ground. All the while, Queasy, Swizzy, Mustache, they are causing absolute mayhem, just spraying from above. Malapuka gonna fall at a similar time, and Queasy, Mustache, Swizzy, this could be the game that they've been chasing all day long here, looking down, seeing the chaos unfolding underneath them, not even having to apply the damage just yet because Pix and Demus, they're clearing out the low ground for them. They're doing so much of the heavy lifting, but Swizzy, the moment that he drops, he's trying to get some of those final blows alongside Mustache. Mustache just threading the needle, finding tags here and there, needs to get another one. Volko eliminated here for Mustache. 6 make that 8 in total for this trio. Demus still scrambling, but Mustache, too much damage. He's gonna be forced to pause. It's up to Queasy, but Cringe from behind. Cringe could cause a serious issue, and Mustache loses track of what's in front of him, but Queasy up above, he's made sure to maintain height. Down to his final 2 builds, he'll be forced to drop and join the rest of the lobby.
No.
Darm's gonna fall. Queasy could do it. He needs to just get this final shot, but the Siphon won't save him. Pixarm and Demus hold on just long enough to get the Victory Royale and steal it away from Queasy.
So close, so incredibly close. Queasy has been playing so well, to be honest, throughout the day. They've been getting to those top 10s, but they haven't got a match big enough to put themselves in contesting range of that first place spot, and he almost gets the 1v3. But congratulations to Pix, Darm, and Demus. Not only were they able to revive their teammate in those last moments of the end game, they've gotten 4th twice today, they've gotten 3rd place, and now they've secured that Victory Royale. They were not in qualifying range to the global championship going into this match, but now I can almost guarantee that they put themselves in a spot to do so. Frankie, that was insane.
That was absolutely insane. Pixstar and Demus, listen, we love having them in a major final. I've been slightly disappointed to not see them on form so far, but now they come and make a moment we won't forget. Queasy in that 1v3 tried his hardest. It was so close, but you've got to give it to the Polish boys, Mini Miner. They delivered.
Yeah, really nice day too for these guys so far. I mean, you know, going into this FNCS, so much expectation on their shoulders. People were talking about top 3s, people were talking about wins, but they're clawing back into it after a really rough start, and that's what a great team will do. Now they're going to be higher up in the standings. Of course, now their scope's going to be more focused on that global championship spot, but this is a team that we haven't really seen too much of over the weekend 11, but for today, they've been doing really good.
Yeah, look, they've been sort of petering around that line of the top 10, right? And so like the casters rightfully mentioned, that game catapults you into a position to now compete for a global spot, which I think many people expected them to be doing for more of this weekend. And it's better late than never, I guess. Those final moments, though, very eerie. They did so well to get that revive off, right? Because had they not, they probably do just lose this game. Queasy, you know, he was turning into an absolute animal towards the end of that flick that he hit on Dom was just mental. Like, I was not expecting that off of Queasy, but Pix does well there. He has the edit, the composure, gets the job done. Finally good to see this team making more of an impact in this lobby for sure.
It was absolutely crazy to watch. I nearly fell over my green screen. My background nearly looked very different. I could have broken the setup. I think Levin was the same, and Mini Miner, he was cool as a cucumber as always. We're gonna head to the break. When we come back, we've just got 2 more games remaining. I can't believe it. Just 2 games remain in the FNCS Europe Major 2 finals, and we know they're going to be absolute bangers, so stay tuned as we discuss what happened in Game 10. We've got to look at the leaderboard, boys. Things keep chopping and changing, but Fredoxy's trio, I imagine, are still at the top, and there you go. It's crazy to imagine how great a performance we're seeing from these guys. I have to keep reminding everyone, these guys qualified through the last chance qualifiers, and now they're terrifying everyone in the lobby 11. It's crazy.
This fight here was crazy. I talked about how it doesn't feel like anybody can really stop these guys from getting to endgame. Thomas HD's team tried and failed because these guys just would not give up on this game. Even towards the end here, right, we see Fredoxy and Pablo go down, and it was all up to Chino to try clutch it up. He was in 12th place at that point. He clutches a top 5 mini. These guys want the FNCS win, and they want it bad. They are playing out of their minds right now.
So good. I mean, so confident as well. Every single time these guys get into a fight, it's almost like when Vico Veno Flixi get into a fight, you're like, yeah, they're going to win this. Yeah, they'll roll through this team. And they do, more often than not. And it's just working out so well for them. You mentioned it, the Chino clutch, absolutely fantastic. And that's what you need from your fraggers in the trio. You need them to be making those plays and keeping yourselves afloat at the top of the leaderboard. It's now just about whether they will stay uncontested. That's got to be the question.
I wonder if Vico, Vanny, and Flixi are going to come their way. But I mean, the fact that those 2 trios that are currently heading to Lone Wolf Lair are constantly contesting each other and kind of getting 1-1 apiece each time that we see them, or every other game, I should say, that we see them. It will be interesting to see if Veno decides to change track. We've got to talk about Marius, Pixie, and Vanya, though, because this is a trio that really need to kind of, I guess, try and maintain their consistency in their endgame to try and maintain as high a placement as possible. They lasted until the 13th the 13th spot, I should say, 11. Sorry, the pressure is getting to me. I don't know about these guys. Do you think that they can have another great game? Is it in them?
I mean, yeah, for sure. This wasn't their greatest game, though, right? As you know, we've seen them have plenty of better games. They've won so many games this weekend, but this one wasn't their strongest, and it's tough that it wasn't their strongest because their biggest competitors now sort of came out and really had a great game in Chino's trio. This is the team that we sort of have to look at. If you're not supporting, Chino's trio to go and win the whole thing, right? Like, you're looking at Vanya, Pixie, and Marius as the ones, because yes, Malibuca's trio is above them, and yes, Vico's trio is right behind, but we know those 2 teams are fighting against each other. Really and truly, when you're looking at the 2 teams who, have a more clear path to competing against Chino's trio, it's going to be Vanya, it's going to be Swizzy, Queasy, and Mustache, but they're both, near about 100 points away, right? Slightly less for Vanya's trio mini. So with 2 games left, it's not impossible to close that gap, but it's starting to look like, another good game for Chino, and they might just wrap this thing up.
Yeah,
it's also looking like many minors. Sorry to interrupt, but I just want to discuss Malibuca with you quickly. I just mentioned it's kind of back and forth between him and Veno's trio on the leaderboard right now, and currently, Malibuca's looking like he's finding that consistency from yesterday, potentially, as we head into these last 2 games.
Yeah, much different complexion to this off-spawn as well. We saw a little bit more of a stalemate. We saw both teams sort of disengage, or at least Vico and Flixi disengage, leaving the drop spot for Wox, Malibuca, and Ping. And that's kind of playing into their favor. I think they're not going to want those sort of quick fights off-spawn. It's not going to work out for them. And they have the capability in endgame. We saw it throughout the entire day yesterday, 11. So there's no reason why they can't do it when they get to the endgame. Ultimately, though, we've spoken about it all day. It's just making that off-spawn work, making it count, and then making it to endgame as a trio.
I want to ask a quick question, Levin. If Veno's trio were not contesting Mali's trio at Lone Wolf Lair, would Malibuca still be in the #1 spot?
Oh, I think you'd have to say so, right? With just how well they played yesterday and how they've still been able to get something out of these games where there's been a stalemate or, things haven't quite gone their way. And it's still close, right? With everything that they've gone through today, it's still close at the top of the leaderboard there, Mini.
Yeah, I mean, they had a 32nd and a 30th today and a 15th, and they're still not that far away from first place. So, if it wasn't for the consistency of Fredoxy's team, we'd be saying this is a team that definitely can pull back that lead. But, can they do it? Will they switch drop spots? Will they keep going there? We'll have to wait and see.
Well, we don't have to wait much longer because it's time for game number 11.
We are right here on the cusp of determining who's actually going to be the team wielding that Blade of Champions, Takada. And with Game 11 on the horizon, so many of these teams that are just trying to last minute scramble their way up that leaderboard.
Yeah, we're getting closer and closer. There's a few things to keep your eyes on, right? It's who's going to end up getting first and who's in that currently top 7, which will qualify you to the Global Championships. Now, I'm also thinking, okay, Vico, Veno, Flixi, they've been landing on Malabuka all day. First place is now for Doxy by a bit. Will they change it up? Well, let's see, because Game 11 is ready to go.
And Veno's trio has been put in a pretty difficult position, because if they want to challenge Mask Meadows and try to shut down what's been going so well for Doxy's team, they leave open Lone Wolf Lair for Malabuka's team to then prosper off of. So for them, they're likely just going to commit to that off-spawn contest, but they know without a shadow of a doubt in their mind now, if they don't confirm those early elims when they do go for that 50-50 contest, it's typically been more so in Malabuka's team's favor.
I mean, that's the main issue. If you end up switching it up now, it's just not where you want to be, but it looks like they're going for an all-out pickaxe battle. Vico is going to be the loser in this case. Veno, Flixi now left to play it out as a duo. Could this be the first match that Malabuka and his trio clean this one up quickly?
Veno and Flixi immediately fall back, though, to try and provide a little bit of cover support, but Ping doing what he can to prevent this double revive. Still, it won't be enough. And Vico actually did get some of the goods before he was pickaxed down. Veno, Flixi, Vico. Now a steady trio, but both sides wanting to at least get a little bit of shield going. And Flixi, it's the fact that they had to forfeit the high ground, though, inside of the mansion. Walk's gonna drop to Flixi's level, but won't be able to find a knock. Veno kind of lurking on Walks, creeping up the stairs, opens with the shot. The infiltrator doesn't bring him knock damage he needs. Walks just hidden inside the bathroom. Will be forced to use Memis grenade, take advantage of the slip barrel, but this is still very awkward approach here for Ping. Doesn't want to get double teamed, so he's opting to just fall back.
Interesting start. To be fair, I mean, it looks quite even now once again, but they saw what happened when the match took a while to kind of, well, I guess the battle took a while to conclude. Both trios were able to make it close to the end game. Malabuka's trio actually getting 4th, so they could just try and play it out slow once again. But the difference here, Taco, as you just saw, is that it looks like Veno, Vico, and Flixi might be the ones, will be the ones to actually get the vault this time around.
Vault control is just going to be a nice swing of resources for Flixi, Veno, and Vico, but Malabuka and them might decide to just hold them inside of the vault. No, they have other intentions. They're just going to leave. They don't want a part of Lone Wolf any longer. They're going to give up their POI and try to find success elsewhere. And we've seen them do it in the 2 lobbies that they have made it from the off-spawn. So can never really count them out. Chicho, Atris, Tayson probably regretting taking that launch pad just now. They were trying to bail out of Kappa, but now they're just going to be chased down. Chicho doesn't even have any materials really, so these teams just focusing him.
They started off so strong too. They got 4th place in all 3 of the first matches. Not 4th place, but top 4 at least. And their first match where they didn't get a top 4 was this most recent match. And now if they fall once again, that whole comeback that they started doing might fall. But Ivan, how do you not win those? Chicho is now left in a 1v2. He's got the chug. He's got a bit of mats. Is it a possibility though, Taco? Can he make a dream come true?
If you're gonna step to some of the best, you best step correct. And Chicho, that put down onto Ivan. Now seeing if he can have similar luck up against Cade, but 2 versus 1. Surely this goes the way of Cade and Aryan. Still, Chicho not making it easy, working his way around these builds. He's got both of them in his sights, but doesn't find the immediate knock. Maybe if he'd gotten one of the 2 from that last shot, there might have been a glimmer of hope, but instead, that's going to be a shutdown for Tayson, Chicho, and Atris. They're going to have to wait out for that Gain 12 battle bus to try and build their position on that leaderboard.
I had faith, to be honest. I had faith. After that first elim, I was like, okay, I see you. As we go back over to Chino, Pablo, and Fredoxy, luckily enough, they are uncontested once again, so en route to continue with their lead for first place. Savage, Vidil, and Reason, they were able to pick up a bit of eliminations in the last match, but ended up getting elimed before that late game, so if they get snuck up on this time around, it's going to be tough. Savage is completely alone here.
Oh,
if
he
Pablo
has no
gets a
idea.
beam, yeah, this is going to be a tough one. I hope you make the right decision on where to walk to next here, Savage.
Oh,
Playing
Mr.
safe, though.
Savage. Please. You don't want it. Not like
no.
this,
Not
right?
this
Not
way.
like this. This is not the way that we want to see Savage leave this lobby and still seemingly unaware of the dangers that are directly next to him. Chino, Pablo, creeping. Slight sprint, then back to creeping up onto Savage's current position. You can feel the 3-2-1 building. Savage, he just wanted the mats, loses a good chunk of his shield instead, trying to scurry on out of here, but Chino with the cutoff, that Sub-Zero kit doing him a huge favor, now jumping immediately on top of Savage's head, and Chino, he's just trying to make sure that he can confirm. And sure enough, Savage will fall. Reason and Vidil are now going to be forced to disengage entirely. Have to play through the reboot too. It's tough scenes.
For Pablo, Fredoxy, and Chino, they've done a great job finding these eliminations early. I mean, they're not opting to just kind of go for that surge-based strategy. They have been playing aggressive and looking for those full-on eliminations. Now they've picked off one, they can, you know, choose, do they want to hunt the duo or do they just want to continue with their loot path? Also depends on how these zones pull, but Reason, as you can see, is making a bit of a statement here. And hey, come on up if you want, but I'll be ready.
But he has to spend so much time waiting, and they will get the reboot off almost immediately. But Savage has to start all over. He had just invested a decent amount of the early game towards looting up that armored van, trying to get some materials from Southern Pines area, and right back to square one from that jump scare that Pablo, Chino, and Fredoxy decided to produce.
Yeah, it's tough. That's honestly tough. Ended up being kind of like a loot llama there in the end. Have to do it all over again, but hey, at least, you know, they're back in the game and they can, could be a lot worse, right? We've seen worse matches been, you know, come back from, especially what we saw from Malabuka and Vico's battles, still being able to make it, so. Vanya, Marius, and Pixie have been uncontested throughout this whole weekend, which has benefited them heavily. Also, you know, their north zones might have helped a little bit, but they're still not in that first place. Not only do they want the qualifying spot, but being in third right now, they want to see what they can do to hold that and potentially even, you know, surpass the Malabuka, the Fredoxy, but they will need a big game if they want to get first. With the amount of points that now Fredoxy, Pablo, Chino are leading by, it's going to be a lot more difficult to catch up to them.
Take a look at what's building in Magic Mosses, though. Veno's team likely just trying to get control of this black market. It's located nearby. They'll have to deal with Sangyield first, though. It's threatening. A little bit further north of where Veno's team is boxed. And they're not the only ones either. Plenty of traffic surrounding Magic Mosses right now. Vico trying to keep a lookout as best as possible. But they spend too much time here. They might get caught in congestion that they were not bargaining for, but they love a good fight. They're definitely a scrappy team, and they're a team that knows how to close those fights too.
And over once again at the Pablo, Chino, Fredoxy versus Savage, Vidil, and Reason. They're getting up close and personal once again, trying to get the back-to-back, the 2 times. Sneaky play. Be difficult to be successful again. I mean, hopefully Vidil, Reason, and Savage are kind of looking out for that.
They've definitely got their surge bases on top of the mountain span, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be completely safe, especially if they have no idea that Pablo, Chino, Fordoxy are just crouch walking all around this tunnel area. Certainly being cautious, though. They really just want to steal the van and go. That seems to be their primary intention. And now, with it being on the move, it does appear like Reason, Savage, and Badil, they don't want to let their ride go, but they don't have a choice. They're just going to have to watch them bail out.
Got robbed. It's all good, though. At least they're still up. Thomas, Panzer, and Uppel have been having a bit of trouble throughout the day. They've been managing to stay just on the cutoff, but I don't think they've even made top 10 once today. Although Walks now is going to pick up an elimination here onto Shark.
It's actually crazy how easy he made that look. Against Shark of all people, it just goes to show. No, Riley, Trulex, Shark, they were not anticipating to have company this early on here at Foxy Floodgate. Ping and Walks still lurking, though. It's going to be a tough duo operation, but the 2 versus 2. It's a little bit more evenly cut. Mustache, Swizzy, Queasy, just trying to take advantage of where Thomas's team is currently at, fighting inside of the storm now. They need to get even more points if they want to continue being a threat towards that top side of the leaderboard. And Panzer, good chunk of his HP gone now. I'll have to hope that Uppel and Thomas can buy him even more time. But Thomas is just slow and steady. Might have an opening onto Swizzy, but just short. Turns it around, though, and Swizzy will be knocked. Thomas wasting absolutely no time now. Mustache heavily threatened. They've got the numbers advantage. They go from being hunted to hunters, and this is an ideal situation, working their way through Kappa Kappa, because they can continue playing tag with Queasy's team. When they go for the reboot, they'll know we've got this trio right behind us. We'll just trail them and continue applying damage to them every step along the way.
I was going to say, not again. Not again. Thomas, Uppel, and Panzer going down early. 23rd in the last match. Like I said, they haven't got top 10 once today, but because they performed so well in day one, they were able to kind of stay in that qualifying range for the global championship. But they do need a good match here. They're now in 8th, so they are not in that range no more. But, you know, there's the start of exactly what they need. They just cannot throw it away.
They're also going to have to find some whites somewhere along the way. Thomas HG only has 90 left inside of this current Chug Jug. And it seems like they're still scoping out the vicinity, trying to figure out where Queasy's actually gone off to. Thomas, if he's not careful, though, he could be picked off. But Queasy seems a lot more preoccupied with just trying to stay alive. He's not really interested in taking this immediate fight. Thomas wants a faster means of rotation, though. And Queasy, unfortunately, can't. Oh, he might have just found Niels right at the last second.
Good for now, but yeah, it's going to be tough to come back from. Noah Trulex trying to see if they can catch Walks and Ping here. Just kind of snuck in the corner, but Noah's going to go down from the 2v2 to now Walks and Ping with 3 elims on the board. This is a amazing way to put themselves in the game. They need this match, Taco, and with odds not in their favor, this is a good way to set themselves up.
It'll just be the 2 of them, so it's going to be a rocky road. We've seen them manifest it from similar positions before, even in the last major. Fordoxy, Pablo, and Chino, though, they are elevated at Shiny Shafts, just exchanging blows with some teams that are also based up in their Surge Mountains across the way. It looks to be Sky and Marius' teams, all in their separate Surge bases. But things are relatively quiet right now at Shiny Shafts.
all the top 5 trios are still up and running. It's going to make it that much more difficult for the teams trying to push themselves in that cutoff for the top 7. Currently at 446 points going into this match, but with Tace and Chicho and Atris being eliminated, you know, it opens up a chance for the other teams a little below them.
And another one for Pablo Wingu. Hey, you gotta make sure that you're staying up to date with some of your balloon fights here. Okay,
Yeah.
Cringe and Kiduo though, they probably keeping tabs on what Pablo is up to. Pigstorm and Demas, though, big surge up leaderboard after that Victor Royale in the last match, Takata, and they are certainly trying to confirm their global championship seat. This is easily going to be one of their best opportunities. They're so close they can taste it.
They really can. I'm excited to see how this one plays out. If you're not familiar with Pix, Darm, and Demas, they played in the first major finals last season, somehow qualifying. And not only that, they got 5th place from being the underdogs to now top tier competitors on EU going into today, and even, you know, these major finals once again. A lot of people kind of have them on their radar and they're in that qualifying range, so seeing them in the global championship would be amazing.
Still a bit ridiculous though to think. We're checking back in with Marius's team, and they've got 3 victory royales in total across this weekend, Takata, and yet they are still in that 3rd place position on the leaderboard heading into this 11th lobby, and you just know that they want the extra 2 spots up ahead.
Yeah, I mean, they were 1 spot off qualifying in Major 1, literally 3rd place when the top 2 qualified. They had a 12% win rate in the Div Cup finals. They know how to win matches. They can win those matches, but they've been lacking in, you know, the constant top 10s, the constant top 5s. But those wins have been helping them, you know, keep themselves and planting themselves in qualifying range to the global championship. But, you know, they want more than that. They want to be able to get that 1st place alongside it, that Blade of Champions. So hopefully with a big game here, it can kind of push themselves up.
But of course, they're not going to be the only ones trying to get a really big performance in these last couple of lobbies. Vico, Veno, Flixie just rolling around the outskirts of Outlaw Oasis. It's going to be tough for other teams to really stop their current flow, but Veno, he just wants prime positioning. Even if it comes at a slight cost, a little bit of damage, but they're rolling through.
You know, this game, they need to put themselves in 2nd, because we know what Vico, Veno, and Flixie truly want. They want to win this major like the rest of them. And to do that, going into this, you know, 2nd to last game that we're witnessing right now, they need to put themselves in at least 2nd place so they have a good chance of taking 1st in that last match. If they put themselves into 2nd here, I would not be surprised if they land on Pablo, Ferdoxy, and Chino in the last match. But to do so, they need to get a good amount of points here. Now, they are above. They've gotten an elimination, but that's just the start. Mustache, on the other hand, Grippe gets knocked down. But so does Mustache, Swizzy as well, and it's all up to Queasy. A huge game leading into this match. Put them in 5th place, but now potentially gonna go down early.
And Queasy is just chasing Glubshy. He wants this so badly. Anything to continue their run inside of that top 5 of the leaderboard. But Queasy, he's running out of time. He's running out of HP. The Storm's gonna finish off what Glubshy didn't even need to do. And Glubshy will be the only survivor from that exchange. Trouble's definitely starting to pick up here, though, for Pablo, Ferdoxy, and Chino. They don't necessarily have the HP that they'd probably want to right now, but more than enough resources, more than enough heals. They'll be able to build back up, no problem. It's largely just dealing with some of the congestion piling around them, but they'll get some great shots in onto Faded. They can tell that box fight's getting scrappy. They don't have to get up close and personal just yet, though. They'll opt for the free rotate while those teams are preoccupied. Darm, Demas, luckily avoiding the view of Pablo, Fordoxy, and Chino. They might have actually chosen to collapse, but this team is just full on dead set on getting into the next zone.
Yeah, you got to be careful when the 7th zone pulls to the uncongested side, and you know a majority of the lobby is going to be rotating. You do not want to be the last trios to get in. So great job, you know, seeing that and being able to base up quickly. Now they do have that, you know, chance to look back and shoot the trios rotating on in a bit late. Cammy close to them, no shield to his name.
Oh, this is tough for Seti, Cammy, and Hari, though. They're just smushed between Moneymaker's team and Fordoxy's, and they don't look like they're in a position to fight either of them, but we'll have to revisit exactly what's going down over there. Kiduo, Volko, Cringe, they've managed to find a somewhat isolated spot on the side of this hill face, a little bit closer towards the dead side. Panzer, Thomas, Uppel, eating a few tags, returning a few tags. Vico, Flixie, Veno, just trying to make sure that they're in a position to take over high ground, and Navahollow nearly going down, but will manage to just stay standing, even if just barely. Veno, all the while, still pressuring onto Noms. Twy might not have shield, but it's a 2 versus 1 that Veno doesn't want to tango with just yet. Height was all Veno was after in the first place, and forcing Navahollow's team downwards means that they have open reign towards it.
Come on, pull zone, pull zone. They pulled it. Okay, this is massive for Vico, Veno, and Flixie. They played for the odds. They pulled 8th zone here, but they're below. Please don't let being 28 below lead to your demise when you're so close to closing this out and pushing yourself up that leaderboard. All they have to do are connect a few shots. The issues from the early game led them to not have the best spare shields. They really need to do a bit of damage here. The odds have been in their favor for this match, but if they keep on ticking, it's going to be difficult. You can see Walks not in a great position at all.
This is a terrible spot for Walks in comparison to what we're witnessing from Veno's team. And sure, Veno's team just barely above that damage threshold, but they still have all 3 players. Walks has a solo down to his last small shield potion. Feels like it's only a matter of seconds before somebody takes notice of his current position, and sure enough, Walks will fall. But Veno, Flixie, Vico, they can't afford to let up. They're now holding separate angles on height. They're trying to apply whatever damage they can, and just like that, they jump well above what they need for the damage threshold. They can't get comfortable, though. They know that there's still teams underneath them, could potentially be looking to chop them out, and they want to hold the high ground for as long as possible.
Demus picks Storm, doing a great job, just trying to get a bit of damage in on the players rotating through. Savage, incredibly low, has to be careful as he gets dropped as well. Shot away from getting knocked. As we take a look at how they've been causing disruption here throughout this late game. Tidy getting knocked down, quick points for them. Where will this first moving pull towards? Is it going to pull towards Cammy, Seti, Hari? Is it going to pull towards Vico, Veno, Flixie? And yes, it will. The double pull from this trio. They claimed it. Kind of scared Cammy away and now got the zone pullback. So can they hold on? I mean, Queasy's not in the lobby. Vanya is, though, and we know they like going for wins.
Poor Fnatic. Sometimes you just see these solos in the low ground and you just gotta feel for them because it's like impossible to know which way to actually run. Everybody just trying to look for pickoffs as they make their rotates. But Veno, Vico, Flixie, they've definitely got the zone RNG on their side. And for Doxy, Pablo, Chino, they've got to hold down this secondary height position instead. They can't look for a height challenge. Not even sold that they would even want to go that way, though. Their build's a little bit low. A refresh certainly needs to be found. And sooner rather than later here is Pablo, Chino, for Doxy, managing to go unnoticed. That is until Chino gets knocked in the process, though. Vico saw him in the final moments, but they have been chopped. Vico, though, won't lose any HP to fall damage. They were prepared for that. And Pablo for Doxy, they've got to put on a crazy performance here if they want to hold that spot on the leaderboard.
Oh, Vico jumps into a full trio. The 1v3, they were out of materials. He knew he had to make a massive play to come back here, but Flixie is going to be able to pick up one. It's going to be enough mats to push them to zone, but Are they still holding on? Yes, there's not a single trio contesting them. Now they're able to build on in. The zone pulled far, but they did what they had to continue above.
They're full tarping out. Pixie, Marius, Vanya, they'll be able to get a revive off, so they're still going to be a trio intact for the time being. But Pablo, Fordoxy, they're just hoping that they can get a refresh. They're trying to make sure that they don't fall to Poland. Demon's Darm, but they get caught off instead by Frenek's team. And now it's Fordoxy coned up, isolated, hoping that Demon's Darm and Pix don't realize where he's at. He wants to see if he can get a Siphon tag in, but it's not going to be the case. Runs in straight into the hands of Avahalo, who was just hiding in the backside.
Pixie, Marius, Vanya, we talked about it. We know that they like playing for that victory royale. They have now overtaken the high ground. This is what they need with Fordoxy. Left alone, Veno going down as well. The whole trio being eliminated. Now's the chance for Marius, Pixie, and Vanya to push themselves closer to that first place spot on the leaderboard. All they need to do is close out this match.
They're just smothering these lower layers with as much suppressive fire as possible. Pixie, gotta be careful, but Tripburn has been knocked. Vanya credited with that one, just waiting for the Siphon to tick over. Finds another elimination even, and they just have full control of height. So much material, so much to invest. The world is their oyster here in Game 11, Takata, and they are just continuing to apply that steady pressure. Marius, Vanya, Pixie, if they find that fourth victory royale, and it starts with the elimination onto Gires, the knock gonna be the opening. Pixie with a massive shot though onto Dinas, and now Seti just trying to avoid the rampage that Pixie seems to be setting himself on.
They had a tough game 10, but as Marius goes down, the pressure is increasing. Vanya, Pixie now left alone as a duo to try and clean this one up. There's 6 total players. Looks like Cammy's still on low. Shot gets connected from Pixie onto Frenek. Gets the elimination alongside it. Seti, Cammy now, a duo down below. It's a full trio.
Cammy, Hardy, they're all so strong when they play together. But Pixie and Vanya, they're still a big part of this conversation. They still have a couple of mats to play with here. And Pixie waiting for that perfect shot. He's got to be as precise as ever, though. He can't let this one slip. But Seti, Cammy, Hardy, they're not looking to lose another one. They want their victory royale. Vanya gonna manage to jump ahead. Seti trying to run back. Seti won't get away, though. And Vanya, right as we thought that Cammy, Seti, and Hardy might have a chance to close this one out, it is shut down. That dream just slipping away from them.
Vanya said, no heal off for you. Get back to the lobby. Knocks him. Secures the victory royale. This is perfect. As the first place trio went down, the second place trio went down, and Vanya, Pixie, and Marius, with an open road ahead of them, were able to pick up the victory royale to now push themselves closer and closer to that Blade of Champions.
Absolute tragedy, though, for the Polish here. But Vanya, Pixie, Marius, what a come up in this game 11. Frankie, Levin, Mini, tell me what just happened.
I will forever associate multiple victory royales with Vanya in major finals. This one is no different, Levin. Poor Cammy and Seti just having another one stolen from under their very noses. But let's not dwell on that, Levin. Let's not dwell on that. Let's just big up the fact that Marius, Pixie, and Vanya are almost certainly going to global championships now, and they're proving why they are one of Europe's brightest hopes.
Yeah, one spot away last major. This major looks like they've got that job done, but the job is not finished for this team, because I think this is it. This is the contender. This is the team that really stands in the way of Pablo, Fordoxy, and Chino. If there's anybody that's gonna beat them and stop them here in game 12, it's most likely gonna have to be these guys now, Mini.
Yeah, and the way they played this endgame was really nice as well. They had to pick up the revive onto Vanya, which of course this refresh gave them the green light to take height there in the end as well. They were just playing height just underneath Vico and Veno's trio there up on top, and they just took it really, really straightforwardly. And from here on out, it only looked like it was going one way right up until the end, when of course we had Seti, Cammy, and Hari right on the low ground. And to be honest, with the way that Seti, Cammy, and Hari have been playing these endgames and these final two trio situations, I was kind of confident in Vanya, but the way he did it was unreal there at the end.
Yeah, I mean, the clutch shots onto Seti as he ran away,
Yeah.
I mean, Seti's going to regret building up on that ramp and running. Like, he's going to be wishing he would have hidden maybe a bit more. Losing another 2v3 situation is just crazy. But look, focus on Vanya, right? Because Vanya and Pixie, you know, remember in the group stage when we were talking about these guys, I highlighted the fact that last major, when it came to final 2 situations, they stunk, right? Like, they had like 10 final 2 situations, I think, in set lobbies and won only like 1 of them. This season, they've been much better when it comes to converting in those scenarios, and that's a perfect display of that. Very impressed by this trio right now.
Listen, boys, we need to talk some more. We just have one more game before we crown our FNCS Europe Major 2 champions. We're going to be taking a look at the leaderboard after the break.
If you miss, you gon' regret it. Before you crawl, know I'm running it all. I'm built up like a pharaoh, now they praying that I fall. Through shadows, been burning through these battles. No weakness in my body, need to know you better ask somebody. Already, I consume the patty, it's plenty. I leave a penny for thoughts about how I'm living. Ay, turn up the track, going deep, I'm in the zone. You know I'm about to go, harder than hard to go. When the lights shine bright, that's my show. Burn up and see the glow, I'm gonna make it. No, it's a rap, got the match build like a pro. You know the legends go harder than audio. When the lights shine bright, that's my show. Burn up and see the glow, I'm gonna make it known. Me off the top, no way. I came and called my name. I gave my life into my place, earned everything that I claimed. Nothing ever could replace me. 3-4-3-4, square dance on the floor. This is not a ball, I'm above it all. Start, I see my glow up where you supposed to go. Proceed on the low, can't lose if I'm the go. Leave me in the zone, I take your mind and then I snatch your soul. Turn up the track, going deep, I'm in the zone. You know I'm about to go, harder than hard to go. When the lights shine bright, that's my show. Burn up and see the glow, I'm gonna make it known. I get it, they love my whole steady. They got so listen, told you this ain't hypothetical. Answer the call, prove this once and for all. Can't reach me with an arrow, summer nights I never fall. No cattle, the goat don't wear a saddle. Go riders off my body, cut them off, they yucky sloppy. Already, I consume the petty. The vision's 2020, believe your eyes are winning. Turn up the track, going deep, I'm in the zone. You know I'm about to go, harder than hard to go. When the lights shine bright, that's my show. Burn up and see the glow, I'm gonna make it known. It's a rap, got the match build like a pro. You know the legends go, harder than audio. When the lights shine bright, that's my show. Burn up and see the glow, I'm gonna make it known. The track going deep, I'm in the zone. You know I'm about to go, harder than hard to go. When the lights shine bright, that's my show. Burn up and see the glow, I'm gonna make it known.
Hollywood ain't got nothing on SMCS Europe, my friends, because we have just got one more game before we crown our winners of Major 2, and it is looking incredibly close at the top. Let's bring up the leaderboard, guys, and see where we're at with just one game remaining. Vanya, Pixie, and Marius Levin, they are, I mean, they're not looking good to take it just yet because there's just 6 points between them and second. But the consistency they've showed today, the ability to pick up those victory royales, makes me think they must be confident.
This is gonna be a cook of a game 12, man. This is what you want. You want the close photo finish, Mini, and we're gonna get that here because Vanya, Pixie, and Marius have catapulted their way into it. Look, both these teams have been fantastic this weekend. Both these teams have so much on the line. The only winner, or the only player who's won an FNCS on either of these teams is Vanya, right? Pixie looking to pick up his first. Marius looking to become the first Danish player to do it, right? So a big weekend for Danish Fortnite. I don't even know who I think is going to do it, to be honest with you, because both of these teams have been so good at making it to these end games consistently, Minnie.
Yeah, and I think what I will say is that whoever does end up winning this will definitely deserve it on their performance this weekend. You can see with their elimination stats, their placement points as well, they're so close to each other, and the consistency that we've seen from particularly Fredoxy's team has been next level this entire weekend. So although they don't have the experience necessarily, they don't have the experience of being in this position, this is going to be coming down to a very, very close finish, and you have to say whoever does take it will fully deserve it.
Yeah, and when you look at this team in particular, it's such an interesting story for them, right? When you look at all three of these players and the trajectories they have been on, it's been so strange almost, right? You look at Pablo Wingu. Pablo Wingu's been around in EU competitive for a long time. You know, back in 2021, right? Pablo Wingu was popping about. Obviously, he went to the Invitational in 2022, and that was really when I think a lot of people thought this guy is going to be one of the top players for a long time in EU. And it didn't quite pan out from then, right? You know, a lot of people thought Pablo and Bebies had hit their peak. You look at Fredoxy when he burst onto the scene, very talented Danish player. Everyone thought, okay, right, he's going to make that level, make that jump to the tier 1. And even though he's been one of the best off spawn players and everybody respects him there, he never quite, again, put himself in that category. And he just last season didn't even make the major finals, right? And then you look at Chino, the young talent coming in. He's had a great sort of, you know, last year and a half. And he's finally found the formula, playing alongside two people he respects a lot. I know him and Pablo have been friends for a long time and they've always wanted to play with each other. This is the first season they've had that opportunity. And boy, if this is what you get for playing with your friends, I think I want to play with my friends all the time in FNCS, right? That's exactly what he'll be thinking in his head now. So a big last game, a lot of pressure on all these guys because competing for a title in that final game, it is no joke.
The devil's advocate in me wants to say that these guys have been gifted Mars Meadows for free, and maybe if they weren't, there would be a different team in that top 2 right now. However, Fredoxy's trio have been showing that they are one of the strongest off-born teams. They have earned Mars Meadows for themselves throughout this season, not just this weekend, Mini Minor. Do you think that actually, even if they did have a team dropping against them, they would still be there?
Yeah, definitely. I think it happened in game number 2, right, of this weekend. They had a team sort of like contesting and rotating in nearby. So they definitely have what it takes. They rolled Vico Veno Flixi when they contested them in week 4 divisional finals. They have that confidence. Every single aspect of their game right now is looking really, really good. And yeah, you know, they had a really good POI, uncontested vault, black market, all that sort of stuff. But you have to do what you need to do with that loot. You can't just win an FNCS from just getting good loot. You have to make the most of it. And that's what they're doing.
Well, guys, we're not just talking about number 1 here. We're talking about that top 7. We already know that 2 of the trios inside the top 7 have qualified for the Fortnite Global Championships in September, because where are legends made? On LAN. Every single one of those trios wants to make it to Lyon. We're going to find out who will book their spot after this game.
It's so intense. Thomas isn't in the top 7. Tayson isn't in the top 7. Pink isn't in the top 7. There's so many of these trios that are not yet in qualifying range for the global championship. The desk set the scene perfectly. First and second place, head to head. Only one player on both trios has won an FNCS. This could be huge for any of these players. Taco, this last game is going to be sick.
Yeah, the top 10 in general looking really close, and we'll see who comes down with the Blade of Champions in Game 12.
It really all comes down to this. There's a few things we gotta, think. Flooded Frogs, Masked Meadows. This is where our number 1 and number 2 trios have been landing. Vanyard's trio and Flooded, Fredoxy's trio and Masked Meadows. They've been uncontested throughout the day going into this last match. Will it stay like that? We had Vico, Veno, and Flixi who were contesting. Well, I'm just making sure we're good. Okay, it seems like they are uncontested. Like I was saying, Vico, Veno, Flixi have been contesting. Malabuka down at Lone Wolf, so it seems for now at least one of our top trios are good to continue with how they've been playing out the day.
Undisturbed off-spawn scenes, but that is not the case for Veno and Vico. They've got to come up huge here because they've already lost Flixi along the way. They're ready to have their outcome determined so early on. It's part of the process, but Fredoxy, Chino, under some heavy pressure, Vidil, Savage, and Reason trying to roll through, pay them a visit after what went south for Mr. Savage in Game 11. Giving them a taste of their own medicine here. And Pablo, Chino, they're going to be forced to just lurk nearby and pray that Vidil doesn't decide to commit any further with the rest of his team. But Vidil, he's after more.
Out the air. Fordoxy gets knocked down. They are going to be forced to fight this out. Has Vidil seen him? He has not. Pablo in a very sneaky situation. He could be able to pick one off here. He needs to connect this shot. Everything comes down to this. If they get eliminated here, they are most likely out of that contention for first place. They cannot afford to go down.
Actually really respect that reservation from Pablo not to fire. He was waiting until he had eyes on all three members from Reason's trio. But Chino, on the other hand, he manages to find Uppel. He was sat hiding in a bush, and that could be a huge benefit for his escape methods here. Uppel was trying to chase Chino, it appears. Spotted out the fact that he was in a contentious situation. But that is going to allow for Chino and Pablo to get out.
That was insane, by the way. I mean, he thought that, okay, Thomas HD, Panzer Uppel, they're in their surrounding range. If they see me fighting off spawn, they're most likely going to, you know, close on in, look for a third party. So he waited at the porter potty knowing that this was a potential outcome and picked up an elimination from that. As now they are just doing what they can to survive.
They just got to get the reboot off, but it's basically just a huge audio cue to all teams in the surrounding areas. Fordoxy will rejoin Pablo and Chino, and when you factor in that Chino did find that elimination, it's a little bit of surge damage. It's not as much as they would obviously want, but this will at least give them the opportunity to farm up a bit and then try to see if they can establish their dominance elsewhere on the map.
6 points is what separates Pablo, Chino, and Fordoxy from Vanya, Pixie, and Marius. Vanya, Pixie, Marius had a cleaner start without getting knocked off the start. It's a full Danish trio. I mean, Denmark has made 243 FNCS finals, but they are yet to take home a championship. Veno, Vico, Flixi, or should I say just Veno and Vico, are in third place still, but it's going to be tough to take home the second or first.
And that top three position is also a little bit too close for comfort. If you're one of our two leading teams, you've got a little bit more of a point gap between second and third, but third through seventh, all of that is within striking range of each other. And there's definitely some prize pool differences involved. When you are Vico, Veno, and Flixi, though, you know that you've got your guaranteed seat to the Global Championship. You did that in Major 1 finals, but they obviously still want to be as high up on that leaderboard as possible.
And for the trios that haven't yet qualified, you know, to the Global Championship, they just want to make their way on in, right? Being so close right now, you have to put on a performance in this match. I'm trying to think even if it's possible for... No, I don't think Malibuca can boop out of the top 7, so it will still be that to qualify, but it is incredibly close in that top 10 in general. A lot of big names still not in qualifying range for the Global Championship, but although Pablo, Fordoxy, and Chino had a bit of a hiccup to start this one off, they're looking better.
Pablo, Chino, and Fordoxy, the biggest issue is they lost control of Mass Meadows after taking that early spill. So they're going to have to try and fight their way back into that POI. Other teams taking full advantage, though, of what's been left over, what was never gathered in the first place since they didn't have the time to do so because of Reason's team. Mustache, Queasy, and Swizzy, though, coming out of Seaport, can never count these guys out either. They are nestled into that 5th place spot heading into this final lobby, Takata, but they could still come up with a crazy game in the final hour.
I mean, in last major, they didn't qualify to the Global Championship by 2 spots. They were just 2 spots away, right under Vanya, Marius and Pixie to qualify to the Global Championship, although they were looking like favorites, ended up getting contested, and now uncontested. They're in qualifying range, but, you know, they're getting close to that borderline, so they still have to have quite a performance. And I mean, if you're Vanya, Pixie, and Marius, you're in first place here, but you want to get that Blade of Champions. You want to win that FNCS. Vanya has already claimed a few, but Pixie and Marius, they have yet to win one.
But see, Vanya knows what kind of nerves start to factor in when you are this close to winning. And for Marius and Pixie, it is so easy to just start feeling that little bit of hesitation. You second guess every single one of your moves. And so this is where Vanya can really step up to the plate, really be a huge leader and control the nerves of his trio, because Fordoxy, Chino, Pablo, they're also experiencing probably a similar sensation. This is something that would just really change the narrative surrounding all three of these players.
It's almost worse for Fordoxy, Pablo, and Chino, though, because they're kind of, like you said, playing a little different of an early game because they don't have control of Masked Meadows and now forced to kind of not be as comfortable. They were the ones sneaking around looking for those eliminations in these previous games. It's how they were getting a lot of the surge, but now kind of all eyes are on them. These opponents know where they are. They don't have as many options to sneak up on them again, and it's making it a lot more difficult for them in this last match.
But they're drawing that other team so far Southwest, likely because if they are going to have to fight, if you are going to have a team pursuing you for that long, you want to make sure it's as isolated as possible so you don't risk the third-party endeavor. Definitely seemed to be the intent for Fordoxy's team, but for sure an uphill battle that they're still trying to scale. Hari, Seti, Cammy, inside of Brutal Boxcars, looking for their surge damage wherever applicable. This is still a 180 performance in comparison to how Major 1 finals ended up for this trio. They're here to remind all of EU that they are still top dogs of the region.
It's good to see them. It's good to see them in that top 7 in qualifying range, like you mentioned. Their major finals performances haven't been looking too hot recently. But, you know, they got uncontested, and now once again, they're part of those top teams. What I'm seeing here, it was Vanya, Marius, and Pixie, and the players that were potentially looking like aggressors was Vico and Veno, so that is not a team you kind of want to fight against. Fordoxy, Pablo, and Chino now, though, kind of just getting bullied from above. Their truck's about to explode. They're forced to take low elevation, and now just 2 builds is all that Pablo has. They are quite literally playing this match in shambles.
They have to take this fight now with Chap, but Chap, he might have been a little bit overzealous here. Jumps right into the trap that Fordoxy's team had set for him. He's so incredibly low on HP. Pablo needs to find the closing shot. Svi has now rolled into the location. Canyon crossing, heating up in the span of seconds here. But Pablo, he's got no build. He just has to find the eliminations. He needs the siphon materials, whatever they can find in these final moments. They don't want it to be their last. The nerves have got to be at an all-time high here at Takata. But Pablo, Fordoxy, Chino, they're still holding it.
You saw on the minimap, a full other trio is coming in for the third party, and they knocked down Fordoxy. This is the worst outcome from this fight. They did the damage, but they weren't able to close it out. Fordoxy's been fully eliminated. Pablo, Chino now left as a duo. The good news is it looks like those third-partying players have disengaged. They're happy with that one elimination. And now Pablo and Chino have to decide. They don't really have materials to run away. They have to play it slow. They already lost one of their teammates, but they know they did a good amount of damage, as they're most likely just going to continue in shambles here.
Pablo will manage to pick up some leftover body loot. Those mats go a long way for him right now. But they definitely do not want to overexpose themselves. They're willing to wait it out. He has 2 med miss grenades. They can definitely tank a little bit of storm. All they need is for these 2 other teams to leave the area, and then they can begin trying to recoup what they've lost. It's certainly a big blow. It's got to be something that Vanya, Medius, and Pixie are keeping eyes out for in that elimination feed. But Chino and Pablo, they just have to focus on their own game. They don't have time to think about anything else. And Yanis is going to be the one who actually takes out Fordoxy. Fastroki still trying to completely cut off Pablo and Gino from leaving.
You know Vanya's trio was licking their lips when they saw on the Elim feed that Fordoxy went down.
Have to be.
But the good news is, hey, Pablo, Chino are still up. They're not in a good situation at all, but hey, they're on their feet, so still possible. They're in the zone too. It's not pulling incredibly far, but it's definitely gonna have to be a turnaround if they want to get a big game from this. Meanwhile, we look at Vanya, Pixie, and Marius, and they are just going with the flow, same as the previous matches.
But they're alive and well. They're not just alive, like what we saw from Pablo. And even with Canyon Crossing having cleared out a little bit, they still have to invest so much time just refarming mats, refarming heals. Pixie, Vanya, and Marius, on the other hand, though, max material, optimal loadouts for the most part to carry them through these mid-game rotates, and wasting no time whatsoever at Foxy Floodgate. They're taking over. A little bit of elevation on the mountain range. They've got Cammy in their sights, but not fully committing one way or the other. They're gonna sit around and wait, see who actually comes their way.
Thomas HD, from not qualifying to the finals to now being in that contention, the fight for top 7 and a spot at the Global Championship, currently being in 9th place, so they are not in qualifying range, meaning they need a solid match here, and kind of got to hope that the trios above them don't perform too well.
This is just so big, though, for Panzer and Uppel especially, because Panzer and Uppel took big risks. They left their former trios that had done decently in the last major to take a chance on each other and Thomas and see, is this going to be a winning trio? Are we going to be the Blade of Champions caliber that individually everyone would look at them and say, yeah, they've got the potential, but to find themselves just outside of that Global Championship qualifying range even, it would be devastating if they can't outperform where they were last season.
And I love seeing Demas, Pix, and Darm here picking up eliminations. I mean, yesterday, they only made top 15 in 2 out of the 6 matches. And today, they're looking almost as consistent as Malabuka was in day 1. They've made top 6 every single game today. I mean, talk about a comeback. They weren't even very close to qualifying range of the Global Championship, and now they're sat comfortably in 6th place. So all they have to do is have a decent performance here, and they can go from qualifying to their first ever major finals in Major 1 to now in Major 2 qualifying themselves to the Global Championship.
Triple foot though for Vico and Veno, still without Flixie. And Crime City, it's got company that they're not looking for with the iDrops team. But it's iDrop, he's really got to be careful here. Scroll just falling a little bit too low. Vico trying to see if he can close things out, but he'll wait just a couple moments longer. Vico and Veno have yet to find their first elimination in comparison to the Danes carrying 8 of them. But Sky, man, the moment that he fixates, he just has to worry about the team approaching from behind, and it's Malabuka's team of all trios that they're now trying to contend with. And what looked like a promising collapse has now completely been turned on their heads. Malabuka's trio, they are out for iDrop's team here, and they've already got iDrop. Just waiting to see if they can get the other 2. Probably aware of the fact that the double revive's going off. They're just looking for a pre-edit play onto Veno, and Malabuka opening the doorway. Veno gonna be eliminated. You just know that Malabuka's got to be cheesing right now. And it's only Vico left standing. Sky and Scroll, they are going to opt to go the other direction. And Malabuka more than happy to just keep trying to hunt out where Vico's located.
Gotta be a smile on their face. The trio that turned their tournament upside down, now eliminating them in the last match. They are the trio that is directly above them on the leaderboard as well. After those eliminations, they've taken the spot from them, pushed themselves into 3rd place. And with Vico left alone, he has to pray that they don't find him here.
Vico has one bandage, and he is running on fumes. Even with surviving all of that mayhem, it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be able to convert that into even a decent position. This is real tough scenes for Veno. But Vico's going to do what he can.
Now, I'd love to see Fordoxy, Chino, and Pablo back in game. Levin set it up perfectly, but I want to reiterate. I mean, Fordoxy wasn't even able to make the major finals last season. Not a single player on this trio has won an FNCS. Pablo Wingu, sorry, longtime competitor in the Fortnite space alongside that kind of young talent Chino. Fordoxy has been around for a good amount of time as well, but they haven't kind of had the respect to win a whole major. You know, they'll be on these lists, but they're not going to be the clear winners. So seeing them ahead now in this rough last game, it would be amazing for them to clutch it out, as it looks like Vico's gone down, but he's brought Flixie back into the game. So, you know, they're doing what they can to stay up.
The reboot's onto Veno and Flixie, sure, but they are so far out in Storm. Even if they somehow manage to get into the next zone, Takada, they are going to be threatened by that Storm sickness, I would imagine. And I think the only thing that they're worried about right now, though, is just trying to get as many placement points as possible. I'm not sold that they're going to be able to bring back Vico anytime soon, but Proxy, Chino, Pablo, they might have all been able to make it out of Canyon Crossing. The issue is that they're coming out of the tunnel, and there were teams sat waiting, looking to prey upon anyone that might have been straggling behind. And while they will get the double revive off onto Fordoxy, just again another team that is likely going to encounter some Storm sickness issues, and that could definitely impact the way that they rotate in the late game.
That med mist has been a lifesaver, though. They will be able to make it back in, but that's just the start here. They're not in the best position. I mean, they are on a good uncongested side, but there is that trio right directly above them. They have done enough damage, but now they are incredibly low on spare shields. Only a couple minis for Chino. I think it was Fordoxy, didn't even have any in his loadout.
They're just trying to avoid all fights. They have zero interest in an engagement just yet. Maybe they can turn around and spray a team that might be potentially more chalk than them, but it's going to be tough. Vanya, though, is the last thing you want to see when you are only 6 points ahead on the leaderboard. But Vanya just barely going to be able to reunite with this trio. Water sprites, every form of a healing resource, not going to be dropped. Gotta make sure that Vanya is healthy enough to fight if need be. But scary scenes.
Oh, no.
Can almost feel your heart stop for them. But Pixie, Marius, Vanya, they definitely got materials. But it is very difficult because the zone has pulled deep into Mass Meadows. And Pixie's just trying to get an overview, some shots back. Trying to cut off teams that are looking to make their approach to their current building.
You know they got to be hoping for that RNG. They've set themselves up for the chance of getting a good pull. They have vision on the whole lobby. Marius and Pixie looking to see if they can claim their first FNCS win. Marius was on the come up recently, especially on socials, you know. This young fracking talent now closer and closer to taking home an FNCS as Fordoxy gets knocked down and fully eliminated. Pablo needs to hit some big shots here. It's on to Savage, also no shield to work with. It's everything for this trio right now. They cannot afford to go down, especially with the position that Vanya and his trio have. And now they're just left as a duo.
It doesn't matter what they want. What matters is what they need. They're 227 below the damage threshold. They can't afford to let Reason and Savage get away either. Pablo's gonna pick up what Savage and Reason had started. He's trying to chase after them. He knows that Savage has been split away from Reason, but Chino has fallen. It's only Pablo with 11 builds. This has got to be the craziest solo clutch. Getting the knock onto Reason will at least buy him a little bit of time, but from across the way in the buildings overhead, Pablo knows Height is staring down at him. He's trying to make it into the building, trying to do whatever he can to stay up and running. He doesn't want to see that second place position end in second, but his team might not have a choice. He's barely managing to find some leftover goods here in Mass Meadows. But Pablo, as a solo, knowing that he has to deal with Vanya, Pixie, and Mattias, who are just way up above in the high ground, it is a night and day difference between what's going on with both of these trios in our final lobby.
Literal polar opposites. The perfect primed up position you want to be in versus the absolute worst. Pablo has to find some sort of miracle. He got a good amount of damage, but now with the next Storm Surge tick, he is 155 below. Footsteps heard behind him. It's going to have to look for the elimination. One surprise pump could be enough. He sees the fight has started. It could be an opening for him to aggress here, but he's taking his time. Unfortunately, the shots from the back are going to bring him down to 61 HP. Unable to connect the initial pump, but he gets the AR tag. Just one more for the elimination. Pushes his way on into zone in desperation. He needs this elimination, but is going to ultimately go down. They are 2 points ahead of Vanya, Pixie, and Marius, but I mean, the only way that they don't end up retaking that spot is if they all three get shot down right now and Elim to fall damage.
Sickening feeling for Prodoxy's team, but for Mattias and Pixie, they can't lose sight of what's practically been handed to them now by the lobby. They're trying to hold down this high ground. They've got the leverage. They know they're not that far, and they just need a little bit more. Just one elimination further. They've got so much damage. The surge threshold isn't their concern. It's just maintaining their position. While other teams like Seti, Hardy, Cammy, they're trying to scavenge these low ground spots, but not a whole lot being given to them, with Height just bearing over the lobby.
Look, the lead for first place is significant, but the lead for qualifying to the Global Championships is incredibly close. Pix and Darm just one spot away from being on that qualifying threshold. Cammy, Seti, the ones directly below them, they are literally the cutoff to qualify, and they're going head to head. One of these trios cannot go down so early if they want to maintain their spot. If they want to qualify, they have to focus up.
But Darm, he can't get the layer swap off. He's got Seti, Hardy, and Cammy preventing him from doing so. Seti, Cammy, they just want frontside low. They're gonna actually beat Pix, Darm, and Demas to the punch, and Pix, Darm, Demas now gonna get caught up with Srept, Tripper, but they might have the advantage. They're definitely willing to duke it out in the low ground, but things are getting messy here as Seti, Cammy, Hardy, they've managed to go completely unscathed into this frontside low position. They don't want to allow, they're tarping so much space. All of these builds belonging to them is going to make it so difficult for other teams to try and challenge. All the while, Pixie, Mattias, and Vanya, open season from above.
They're doing a great job holding on to Hype, but I got my eyes on Thomas HD, Uppel, and Panzer. They were 9th place going into this match. They are not in qualifying range, and with their opponents being inside that threshold, they need a massive match. They need a victory royale if they want to secure their spots to the Global Championship, and now is the time to strike. They know high ground has taken shots. This could be an opening for them to retake it.
And Thomas even gonna opt to just chop out Height fully if he can get his hands on it. Mattias, Pixie, Vanya, though, they know that they're under a little bit of heavy fire. They're checking back onto the secondary Height. Pixie gonna drop. Pixie wants to find the challenges in the mid ground. Doesn't want to allow for secondary Height to look for that opportunity for a clean chop out. But Thomas, head on a swivel, just continuously looking up. Not gonna let it go for free. Eats a huge chunk of damage, though. He'll be forced to play the Chug Jug now. He's gonna wait. But Pixie, Vanya, they're the only only 2 left standing. Pixie gonna be dropped. Vanya finds an elimination onto Cammy. He's just grabbing the body loot wherever possible, but he won't be able to get the closing shot onto Seti. It might not matter though. Vanya, Pixie, and Mattias have done enough with their current positioning on the leaderboard. Takada, even with Vanya being eliminated, now it's all down. Thomas, Oppo, Panzer, can you qualify to the Global Championship?
This match is crucial. They need the victory royale. It was Darb, Demus, Pix. They were the ones above them holding the spot away. But with that massive pump from Thomas HD, now just one more shot needing to connect. They have done it. The victory royale. The question is it going to be enough points? They came into this match in 9th. A lot of the trios that were directly above them also performed incredibly well. Is it going to be enough to push themselves into that top 7?
Everything is hinging upon this Game 12 performance, but Thomas, Uppel, and Panzer have finally delivered a victory royale finish, and this is the most optimal time to have found it, Takada. They needed every single point they could possibly get, and they got a good amount of eliminations to go with the win.
I know they're still stressing about it. When you see that the top 2 team is gonna be the one that was already above you in qualifying range, it has got to be stressful. But today, yesterday, this whole FNCS has been a roller coaster of emotions. But that concludes it for Taco and I here in the casting booth. But we still have more to break down. So let's head on over to Frankie, Levin, and Minnie.
Well, it is a great honor to reveal your FNCS Europe Major 2 champions. It's Marius, Pixie, and Vanya.
Let's go.
Wow.
Doing it for Denmark, for Ukraine, and Sweden.